he'd stop the bloodshed. Mr Trump said, "We're working on it." The comments came just hours after he imposed fresh sanctions on buyers of Russian exports. He's also pledged new weapons for Ukraine. The cost of some new electric cars will drop by up to £3,750 as the government reintroduces grants to boost EV sales. Discounts will apply to models under £37,000, with car makers able to apply from tomorrow. The scheme will run for 3 years, but critics warn a lack of public charging points still puts buyers off. The government's aiming for 300,000 chargers and a full petrol and diesel ban by 2030. Well, the felling of the iconic Sycamore Gap tree was an act of drunken stupidity, a court has heard, as the 2 men responsible face sentencing. We'll bring you the latest on that just as soon as we have it. Daniel Graham and Adam Carruthers were found guilty of criminal damage to the 150-year-old landmark and causing £1,000 worth of damage to Hadrian's Wall, where it fell. The tree's destruction caused outrage across the UK and beyond, having featured in the film Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Both men face up to 10 years in jail. And swan-upping is underway this week on the River Thames, the annual count of the mute swan population that's been a royal tradition since the 12th century. The Sovereign Swan Marker and team are travelling upriver, weighing and measuring young cygnets and checking for injuries, often caused by discarded fishing lines. It's all part of efforts to protect these iconic birds and preserve a centuries-old tradition. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More news in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Tatiana. And once again, it's immigration chaos. This time, up to 7,000 Afghans are being relocated to the United Kingdom in a secret scheme following the most serious data breach in MOD history. So far, it's cost £400 million to date, and I think actually it's about double that now. And meanwhile, new figures show that nearly 1.3 million immigrants are claiming universal credit in Britain, and that's an astonishing almost 50% increase in claims since 2022. As you can see on your screen there, the biggest tranche of that are those from the European Union. Just under 800,000 claims. Remember that, Remainers. Open borders, 800,000 claims, universal credit from European Union nations, a 50% increase. Well, we've got a huge amount to get into today, and we've got the best in the business to discuss it here in the studio. I'm joined by GB News' political editor Chris Hope, our Home and Security editor Mark White, and the former Immigration Minister for the Conservative Party, Tom Pursglove. Gentlemen, welcome one, welcome all. I'm going to start with you, Mark White. Calamity. It looks like a total calamity. The biggest data breach in MOD history, could cost billions of pounds. Huge questions. Who's responsible? Why was there a 2-year gagging clause on the press? Who put that in place? Is this a Tory party cover-up? It was on their watch. This happened. How much will this cost? And will this be footed by the British taxpayer?
Oh, I'll try my best. Try my best to answer those for you. Yes, this is deeply embarrassing, of course, for the military in terms of this data breach. And you heard from John Healey, actually, in the comments today, saying it was one of multiple data breaches involving this scheme and schemes at the time when we were in the process of trying to bring those from Afghanistan who had helped out the UK military and UK government during the time that they were in Afghanistan. So that was between 2001 and 2021, before the Taliban then took over in that country, to bring them over here. But this particular data set that had been put out there contained some 19,000 names. And there was real concern that these individuals could be at risk from the Taliban at that time, and that's why the previous government, the Conservative government, applied for an injunction, not a super injunction. That was later elevated by the judiciary to a super injunction.
Okay, yeah.
But an injunction was applied for and granted to the previous government so that there could be discretion and secrecy in this operation to get those highest risk individuals out of Afghanistan, and the UK government believes that that's what they've done in the preceding years. We have taken some 4,500 Afghans to the UK initially so far. That is 900 high-risk individuals and their families. That's what takes it up to 4,500. Another cohort are about to come to the UK as well. That's another 600 high-risk individuals and their families. That will take it to 6,900 Afghan nationals who have been taken from that country to the UK because of the fact that they worked for the UK military during that time, that period, and they are deemed to be high risk. They've got them out of the country. As you say, Martin, £400 million has been paid already to bring them across. Another £450 million will be spent on this. That's just shy of £1 billion, but it could be much higher than that if we are looking further down the road at legal action, and we're hearing from lawyers from many of these individuals saying that they believe there's a strong case to answer and they will be trying to take legal action against the British government.
It's an unholy mess, an expensive mess. Can anybody be held accountable for this? Or is it just one of those things, a human error we have to live with?
Well, I mean, it's one, as I say, of multiple data breaches, and it does appear to have been a human error at the end of the day. You know, the old saying, we're only human. So I don't know what individual sanction has been taken against that member of the military who, it seems, was responsible for emailing out this data set with a spreadsheet of those 19,000, almost 19,000 names. But clearly, as I say, it's not the only one. There was another incident back in 2021 where the names of 625 Afghan nationals who worked for the British military were also emailed out accidentally to hundreds of other people that shouldn't have received that information. And just earlier this month, in fact, the British government agreed to pay compensation of £4,000 to each of those 625 individuals. So not the only time this has happened. You would like to think that the MOD is learning from its mistakes, but they have made multiple mistakes, clearly.
OK, let's bring Tom Purscliffe in at this moment. Tom, this happened on the Conservative Party watch. A lot of people are saying this stinks of a cover-up.
Look, this is a hugely challenging operating environment to deliver both the ACRS but also the Arab schemes. And I would argue that as a country, it is a matter of honour that we do right by those who fought alongside British servicemen and women in Afghanistan. We owe a duty to those people, a duty of care. This is clearly, obviously, a very serious matter. I think
a huge amount of these people weren't fighters. They were families. It became all and sundry because of the error.
Well, that's of course the case, and actually the eligibility for the scheme has had to be broad, recognising the relationships of family members and the persecution that could potentially go on the back of this, all of the risks of people being killed in the most horrendous of circumstances, with this information potentially in the hands of those who ought not to have had it, namely the Taliban. I think that the British government is obligated to do right by these people, but that's not to say that serious errors haven't been made here, serious mistakes, and I'm sure that ministers in the Ministry of Defence in particular will want to come forward with the appropriate detail around that. But I do think in terms of getting those people to safety, that is the right thing to do. And I also think that the courts have been right to say that that needed to be done with a degree of...
Tom, this is going to cost the kind of £1 billion and rising. Universal Credit figures out today. That's another £1.25 billion. This is the thick end of £2.25 billion in one day that's going to foreign nationals. A lot of people will be looking at this and thinking, Britain's at the back of the queue.
I get it. And when it comes to access to benefits...
Do you get it?
Well, I, for one, think that actually the Conservative Party was the party in the House of Commons a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about welfare reform that had got a credible policy offer about what we could do to try and tighten that eligibility, namely saying that if you are not a British citizen, you were a non-UK national, that you shouldn't be eligible for PIP and that you shouldn't be eligible for the UC health element. I personally think that what my former colleagues who are in Parliament should do is work that up into a bill, present it to the House, and let the House decide whether they think that that's the right thing to do. The government don't seem to want to do that sort of thing.
Well, the government can't
that is exactly
clamp
the sort of
down
policy response we should
on a
take.
£5 billion welfare bill. There's no chance of getting this through. You could have done this while you're in power, is what I'm saying.
But there's also the best solution to all of those costs and all of the concerns that people have is to bring numbers down. And that's why I cut net migration by 50%, always said there'd be more to do. And it's why, fundamentally, you need a proper deterrent to stop people making these channel crossings, to put the business model out of action, by effectively detaining people on arrival and removing them to a third country. That is what the Conservative offer is. I think that's the right approach to tackle those very issues at source.
Perhaps kill two birds with one stone and make that safe country Afghanistan. I digress. Chris Hope, politically, it's an utter dog's dinner.
It's a day of grovelling apology from ministers. John Healey, he's given one a sincere apology to the House of Commons on behalf of the government of both stripes. We're yet to hear from Ben Wallace, the Defence Secretary at the time, who went for the initial injunction, upgraded to a super injunction, as Mark White says. They're trying to, the horse is bolted, they're trying to shut the door right now, shut the barn door. They've installed new software to securely share data for the future. But John Healey says one can never say never about future data breaches. All this said in the House of Commons in the past 2 hours. That's why we're reading it out now. Tan Desai, he's the chair of the Defence Select Committee, a Labour MP. He says this is a mess and wholly unacceptable. His committee will thoroughly investigate, he says, to ascertain what's happened and the serious ramifications on so many levels, going right to the top of the MOD and down to the member of the armed forces who did this original leak. The Lib Dems say, how will it stop future data leaks? Now, we're told by John Healey that he's not aware of any other super injunctions, but the nature, the magnitude of this injunction being a super one, which means we can't even talk about it for 2 years,
Chris,
and hundreds of millions of pounds of our money being spent at the same time, is deeply worrying for so many people.
Chris, trust in politics has never been this bad. I don't recall it being as bad. The levels of chaos across 14, now 15 years government seem to be off the Richter scale. A lot of people look at this and just think, they don't know what they're doing. They haven't got a clue. They don't put Britons first. The MOD have made a serious mistake. This is costing billions of pounds for people who get up at work, 5 in the morning, go out, slave their guts out, they're paying for other people's incompetence and other people who come to the country. I put it to you, stories like this, 2 in one day, make people think, what kind of country have we become?
There are question marks, no question. I think the use of the super injunction is definitely troubling. I mean, I've been around for 30 years covering journalism and covering politics for as newspapers also. The issue of super injunctions are a big issue. They're questionable. Why are they there? We couldn't even discuss what it was about.
Footballers normally use them to silence affairs.
That's also wrong, by the way, in my view. That's a privacy issue and also wrong. But I mean, huge concerns. And the issue going back to you've got 250,000 people here, foreigners who are paid not to work by the government. It's insane. It makes no sense, and it's concerning. Also in the news today, this 12-year-old girl, as you mentioned earlier, wearing this Union Jack dress.
Courtney Field?
Courtney Wright, wearing this Jerry Halliwell-style dress, for those on the radio who can't see the picture of what she looks like. She was obviously felt embarrassed. She was almost punished for celebrating being British on a day which is meant to look at our heritage. Well, number 10, the Prime Minister, no less, has rode in behind Courtney Wright and says this: the Prime Minister believes, as the spokesman of number 10, the PM believes that being British is something to be celebrated. We are a tolerant, diverse country. So being British is to be celebrated, Martin Daubney. OK, well, let's make sure the school get that message. I've got the father of Courtney on the show later on, Stuart. But let's continue the conversation now about the calamity in the asylum system. And let's join our next guest, and that's the political advisor, Pablo O'Hannah. Pablo, always a pleasure to have your company. You no doubt overheard this conversation. Utter dog's dinner. A lot of Britons will be looking at this today and thinking the lunatics have taken over the asylum system.
I mean, it is an extraordinary story, and I think what might be lost as part of this debate is, I mean, imagine, you're risking your life to support British troops, you're translating for them, protecting them, helping them out of danger, and then your private details, your family members are thrown up on Facebook. I mean, it's not just a failure of data protection. I mean, this is a betrayal. I think it's a shameful moment for our government, for our country, and we absolutely should be holding our government to account on this. It's a breach of duty, but when lives are at stake, you act first and you explain later. I think I've said before, the UK has an incredibly proud tradition of protecting those fleeing danger, and they just weren't fleeing danger, they were actually helping us. These are some of our country's proudest moments, but not this one. So I think it is absolutely right that our government has held to pretty high standards on this, and that we hold their feet to the fire.
But the issue that many people would have with that, Pablo, is that those who are absolutely worthy of our protection should be. But this is the whole gamut. It's the whole lot of them. It's everybody. Everybody on the entire list, and not all of them were at higher risk. In fact, John Healey, in his statement in the Commons today, said there was little evidence of retribution from the Taliban. It was highly unlikely that being on a spreadsheet of this nature would be the piece of information that endangers life. And I put it to you, we need to hold them to account, but British taxpayers are footing the bill and they're fed up with it.
I think, it's possible that on this occasion the danger was overstated, but I would much rather be safe than sorry. As I say, I mean, the majority of these, the vast majority of them, were Afghans who served bravely alongside our country. They enabled the British Army to perform its duties in extremely difficult circumstances. And I do think we have a moral obligation to support them, because although the UK might not be, this huge power that we once were, we do have an incredibly proud history. A lot of people listen to us for moral guidance, and we are seen across the world, as exactly that people look to us to see what is the right thing to do. We are very good at leading, for example, the reaction to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. We have been absolutely at the forefront of that, as we should be, and we should be so proud of our role there. And I think this is another example where we need to hold ourselves accountable and say, we got this wrong, and this is not who the UK is. We know who we are. We know that we are a proud, tolerant, diverse and open country. This is not that moment. And I think on this one, we have to take the blame for this, and we have to do what's right to make sure that people get what they need in this situation.
Yeah, and yet again, incompetence is expensive for the taxpayer. Pablo O'Hannah, thank you for joining us, and also thank you to my studio guests, Chris Hope, Mark White and Tom Purslove. Great start to the show. Thank you, gentlemen. Now, we've got some breaking news for you now, and it's this. Two men who cut down the world-famous sycamore gap tree have been sentenced to over 4 years each at Newcastle Crown Court. Over 4 years each at Newcastle Crown Court. Daniel Graham and Adam Carruthers were found guilty of felling the landmark and damaging Hadrian's Wall in September 2023. Now, coming up, I'll reveal who the best paid stars are at the BBC. Yep, it's that man again, old big ears, Gary Lineker. That's next with me, Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's News Channel. Having trouble.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:27. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, it's that time of year again. BBC salaries have been announced, and Gary Lineker has ended his time with the Bee by topping the corporation's pay league for the 8th consecutive year. Yes, its annual salary report shows that the ex-Match of the Day host earned over £1.3 million of licence payers' money before he quit in May. Now, other big hitters include Alan Shearer on £440,000 and the Radio 1 presenter Greg James, who, at £425,000. And joining now from sunny Greece is our own Greek gift, the tanned Adonis, former BBC presenter Danny Kelly. Danny, you're on holiday in Greece, but I knew you'd take time out of your day to have a pop at Gary Lineker, once again topping the league table.
Do you know what, Martin? To be fair to Gary Lineker, about 5 years ago, because Gary Lineker's always been embroiled in this dispute about him getting paid far too much money, which I think everybody agrees. But he actually said, look, to the BBC, he said, just pay me less money. That's what he actually said, just pay me less. And that encapsulates the problem. The BBC just need to pay less money. You mentioned Alan Shearer. Of all the shows to be in the spotlight, Match of the Day, Alan Shearer, Martin, has had a £60,000 pay rise. So although the BBC got rid of Gary Lineker, and they didn't renew his contract because, like I said on your show a year ago, he was doing more harm than good for the BBC, so they got rid of Gary Lineker. Alan Shearer, it's on our screens now, a £60,000 pay rise. But there are some people, Martin, that aren't household names, some managers who are on like £250,000. Now, the opposite to this argument is the fact that, well, it's a commercially driven sector and they can go and get that sort of dough elsewhere. Well, my argument is that, no, they can't. Radio 2 presenters, Martin, people like Jerry Vine, I think Jerry Vine's very talented. He's just had a massive pay rise. He's on £300,000. You wouldn't get Jerry Vine working anywhere in the commercial sector. He's too old.
Now, Danny Kelly, £1.35 million, that would buy a lot of Efes. It would buy a lot of kebabs where you are today. But here's the point, Danny. It's like, at the moment, there are huge question marks over the BBC's tenacity, its veracity. There's an Ofcom ruling on this Gaza documentary. There's the Greg Wallace scandal. Now John Trudeau has been pulled in. We've got Glastonbury. We've got Bob Villan. You know, there's a lot of smell around the corporation. And against that backdrop, with bank rolls like this, giant cheques off the scale, is it time to completely review the entire funding system?
Martin, that's such a great point because it's a drop in the ocean, all of these salaries combined. But it's the public perception, Martin, that you've just hit the nail on the head there. It's the perception that, OK, so people can go and get a job elsewhere. They can manage ITV. They can go to GB News. They can earn healthy salary. But it's the public perception that the licence fee payer is paying for this. Martin, When I left the BBC, I became dispassionate about the organisation, and you and I have locked horns about the funding of the BBC over the years, but I'm starting to come to your way of thinking about the future model for the funding of the BBC. Maybe it could be part commercial. The radio stations, for example, Martin, I don't think anyone would stop listening to BBC radio stations if they were funded by commercials. I really don't. And maybe there's an argument to keep the news impartial, so that would be a compromise between your and my position. Maybe it could be lowered significantly. Don't forget there are 18,000 people that work for the BBC, Martin, and that would be a hell of a lot of people losing their jobs, because I don't think commercially they'd survive.
And Danny Kelly, we heard today there were over 500 BBC employees at Glastonbury. What on earth are they doing? Why does it take that many people to put on a blooming music festival?
Martin, I tell you what, mate, one of your greatest assets is a reporter called Jack. I can't remember the lad's name. He did a fantastic piece. Yeah, he did a fantastic piece to camera. He's a one-man band, that lad. He's a young man with a camera, and he managed to do what the BBC would take 6 or 7 people to do a report, and that's what's great about GB News. And if people want to understand the difference between commercial enterprises like GB News and publicly funded, bloated organisations like the BBC, it's 500 people at Glastonbury, and it's one lad with a camera phone in the northeast doing this station proud.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And by the way, Danny Kelly, have you ever had the problem in your career of saying, please, sir, pay me less?
No, never had the problem. Even on regional radio, Martin, they pay me. I said, how much are you going to pay me? They gave me it. I said, how much? I said, listen, let me go away and think about it. Give me another 5 or 10 grand and I'll start. And they gave it me. Even on regional radio, they pay far too much, though.
Well, I mean, most people on the BBC have paid far so much, but Danny Kelly, I'm sure you're worth every penny. Thank you for joining us from your holiday there in Greece. Always a pleasure. Now get back on the pop. Danny Kelly, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Now, loads more still to come between now and 4 o'clock, including a schoolgirl who was punished for wearing a Union flag dress to her school's Culture Day. Is this an erosion of British culture? Well, later in the show, I'll be speaking to her father with an update. And also, we got an update from the Prime Minister. He's got involved in this debate that's gripping the nation. But first, here's your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. The headlines at 3:30. That breaking news this hour that Daniel Graham and Adam Carruthers, who felled the tree at Sycamore Gap in Northumberland, have each been jailed for 4 years and 3 months at Newcastle Crown Court after they were convicted of 2 counts of criminal damage. Thousands of Afghans are being relocated to the UK as part of a secret £850 million scheme set up after a leak of personal data of those who supported British forces. Defence Secretary John Healey spoke in the Commons this afternoon.
This was a serious departmental error. It was in clear breach of strict data protection protocols, and it was one of many data losses relating to the ARAP scheme during this period.
Department for Work and Pensions reveal nearly 1.3 million migrants are now claiming universal credit. That's a near 50% rise in claims since 2022, with EU nationals making up the majority. The BBC has published its annual salary report revealing which stars and executives earn over £178,000 a year. Gary Lineker takes top of the list, taking home more than £1.35 million. The BBC is facing a storm of controversy with MasterChef presenter John Turode now part of an inquiry over allegations of racist language. Turode denied the claim, stating, "I do not believe that it happened." And those are the latest headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hi there. It's a very different day for many of us compared with a lot of the weather we've experienced through the summer so far. It's cool, cloudy, breezy, spells of rain and showers crossing the country, but all tending to ease later. We do have an area of low pressure moving through Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, and it's within this zone that there are some lively thunderstorms coming and going through the rest of the afternoon and into the evening. The spells of more persistent rain moving into the North Sea, the breeze easing, and showers, although they'll continue, will become fewer and further between over the night period, and by dawn, well, some clear spells out there and a fresh night to come, not too uncomfortable for sleeping. We do have some cloud and some outbreaks of rain returning to the southwest by the end of the night, and this is a slow-moving weather system, so mostly it will be confined to the southwest as we go through the day. Brighter skies are to be found further north, and plenty of sunshine for parts of northern and northwest Scotland. I think some lingering cloud there for the east and south of Scotland. A few remaining showers, but not many. Northern Ireland, a beautiful start to the day following the thunderstorms of Tuesday. It's plenty of sunshine from the word go, but a lot of cloud across central and eastern parts of England, and like I say, a few showers. Now, the thickest cloud will be towards the southwest. This is going to be encroaching upon Somerset, Dorset, Devon through the day, into the south of Wales. A few spots of rain, but the most persistent weather likely for Cornwall and western parts of Devon. Elsewhere, bright enough, and actually feeling a little warmer with lighter winds compared to Tuesday, and temperatures reaching 27 or even 28 Celsius in places. Still scope for 1 or 2 showers for central and southern Scotland and northern England, but these will fade away later in the day, and then plenty of clear spells in the east as we begin Thursday, but this weather system will move into northwestern parts, bringing spells of rain, whilst it turns hot again in the southeast.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. The A702 northbound near Hilland is partially blocked due to a broken down vehicle. Ongoing maintenance on the eastbound M4 between junctions 20 and 19 causes a 15-minute delay. The M6 northbound between junctions 34 and 35 has a malfunctioning vehicle closing one lane. In West Sussex, the A27 westbound between the A285 Chichester and the A259 Chichester East Junction has a 10-minute congestion delay. And on the trains, major disruptions occur between Hull and Selby, and northern services report issues between Hull and Goole, Selby and Windermere. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. The time is 3:38 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, women's sports have been told they will face legal action if they fail to ban trans players. And the magnificent former Olympic swimmer Sharon Davis says that British sporting groups, including tennis and weightlifting, could end up in court if they do not prevent transgender women, that's biological men, from competing. Well, I'm delighted to say I'm joined in the studio by that legend, the former Olympic swimmer Sharon Davis, and she's just come fresh from Parliament. Sharon, it's a delight to finally meet you in person after all these years. We've had so many online chats from lockdown one all the way through. Here you are today. You've been in Parliament. Tell us what it was all about.
So Rosie Duffield has had a all-party parliamentary group that she's set up for women's rights, really. So, you know, please make sure that you tell your MPs to ask them to go and to attend, to listen, because that's what it's all about. It's about listening to the evidence, listening to women's stories, to fighting for women's rights. And obviously the first one was sport today, which is, you know, my area of expertise. We are going 2 steps forward and 1 step backwards, but we are making ground. But we're in this ludicrous situation where there are still contact sports, like you mentioned then, that are still allowing men to identify into actually fighting, you know, females in this country. And the law now protects women. It actually makes that illegal, and their insurance would be null and void. So they have no public liability insurance whilst they're doing this. So, you know, please, if you've got girls doing this and you're put in this situation, say no, because I don't know why you know, the FA has actually protected the women footballers at long last, but there are still many sports that are not doing. In fact, there's more sports that don't than do.
Talk us through some of the sports. I just said to you in the break, you know, I got my children to watch the Olympics where a man beat up a woman.
Yeah.
It was horrific, but I think it's a life lesson for them. Which sports are simply ignoring the Supreme Court ruling and allowing this to continue?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, what's fascinating with that situation, obviously, in Paris last year, that was, you know, a biological male with the DSD. Now, there are about 30 DSDs, differences of sexual development. The only DSD that ever appears at the Olympic Games is the 5ARD, which is the same as Caster Semenya and Caleb. These are males that were born with internal male testes, so they were picked up and gone, oh, yeah, you must be a little girl. They went through male puberty. They have every benefit of being male. They are the only ones that turn up at the Olympic Games, you know, in successive, and at football and all the rest of it. So things like taekwondo, we've got the CEO of Rounders that's still saying that it's not a gender-affected sport. This is a sport where people hit a ball. So we know that cricket and golf and baseball, you know, men hit much, much harder and much, much further. Of course, it's a gender-affected sport.
Taekwondo is a full contact sport where there's a risk of serious wrestling.
Yeah.
Full contact sport. It's all about strength, all about skeletal advantage. How on earth can they not be complying? And now you're saying they could be fined. How could that work?
Well, it's not so much fined, it's that they actually won't have any legal cover because they're breaking the law. So if somebody was to get injured, their public liability insurance would be null and void because they are breaking the law. So it's, you know, they're all waiting, they're all sitting on their hands. There are many sports that have protected the female category, including athletics and swimming, you know, and they haven't been sued over many years now. So they need to just get off the fence, protect their female athletes. Only 5% of the world's sporting dollar goes to females, OK? Women get a very, very small slice of the cake. There are a lot more, you know, male opportunities to do sport. I mean, when the FA did eventually protect the female game, you know, we had sob stories left, right and centre, particularly obviously by the BBC, talking about these people who could no longer play football. That's not the case. So what we're saying is that males should not be in female sport. We're not saying don't play sport. We're saying just, you know, stop taking sport away from our young girls. One of the things I find the most heartbreaking is phone calls from parents whose kids are at primary school and the schools decided to have inclusive sports days, which means that they don't have a boys and girls race and not a single little girl wins a race all day. And this is the message we are giving our young girls at the moment. It's atrocious, it really is.
Well, I mean, to many of those girls, it's simply theft. It's unfair.
It is theft.
It's not a level playing field, which is what precise thing you need in sport. Can I ask you about the political mood? Has there been a wind of change? Before the general elections, Keir Starmer couldn't even say if a woman had a penis or not.
No.
And then he suddenly said he agreed with the Supreme Court ruling. Yet we found out last week, Sharon Davis, that there's a Labour group putting forward a trans woman, a biological man, to be a women's officer.
Yes.
Politically, has the penny dropped?
Well, and as far as I understand from the Supreme Court ruling, that's also illegal because the whole point of that court case was for shortlists for Parliament, you know, up in Scotland. So I don't understand it. I don't understand how the law has been now clarified and yet we're still not implementing it. So I guess what we're going to have to do is just more court cases. What's extremely frustrating is that we as women are having to crowdfund to take on organisations that are using public money, taxpayers' money, to fight us. And this is not what taxpayers want. You know, they want fair sport. They want safe spaces for their women. They want equal opportunities. Just, for goodness sake, you know, try to speak to your MPs. I know it's not always easy, but speak to your MPs. Don't take this line down. You know, come together, say no, protect our young girls, your daughters, your sisters, your mums. You know, they're worth it. And golf and the LTA, for example, they protect elite sport, but they don't protect everybody else. That's 99%. So how can we say these women over here are good enough for us to say we'll give them fair sport, and all you women over here, you're not good enough, we're not going to give you fair sport? I mean, that's sex discrimination if ever there was one.
I was about to ask that precise question. It's OK for elite athletes, there's a full spotlight on them, you know, they have governing bodies, you know, and they can't get away with it. But at grassroots level, like one of my producers, Eleanor, she plays football, and we hear stories that there are trans people, men,
still abusing the law,
at grassroots level, who simply found out the form in a different way and they slip through the net. Is that a bureaucratic oversight? And if so, how do people... Everyone's terrified about being called a transphobe, about being called, you know, all those horrible names. At grassroots level, what can individual girls and what can parents do?
Yeah. So in football, for example, there are, I think, 92 men's professional football teams in this country. There's 12 women's professional football teams. There are 4,000 football clubs and only 10% offer women's teams, OK? So there are plenty of places for trans-identifying males to play football. They don't have to play football on a woman's team, taking a woman's place, increasing the injury risk of their opposition, who will be women. And women get 6 times as many knee injuries because of what we call our Q angle, which is our angle between our hips and our knees, which is 50% bigger. So, you know, none of those things can be removed by suppressing testosterone and having a boob job. You know, there is an unfair advantage and it is extremely dangerous in a contact sport. So don't put up with it. You know, if you think someone's on the opposite team, ask, because it is a risk. I just think come together, you know, because you do get labelled, you do get called names, and they rely on that. They rely on that silence to be able to keep on doing, which is abusing the system and abusing the law. And I think we need to say enough is enough. And if it means we have to start taking more legal action, then that's what we're going to have to do.
Well, Sharon Davis, they tried and failed to silence you. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. Absolute delight to have you in the studio. Thank you, Sharon Davis. Now, in search of some holiday sun this year, then here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's pretty unsettled across the eastern parts of Europe as we go through this week. Frequent showers bring the risk of some intense thundery downpours. A different story further west, though, across Madeira and the Canary Islands. It's dry here on Wednesday, also dry across parts of Portugal and Spain. Meanwhile, further east, Italy will see a few showers, but the showers more frequent, more intense towards the east. And like I said, that brings the risk of some heavy thundery downpours. Through the rest of the week, it's looking largely dry for most.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
My eye this morning, because I say it all the time. You can't say gents at work. You're deemed to be not inclusive.
It's not inclusive. This comes from a tribunal which took place where a woman took umbrage at one of her bosses using the term in an email, "Dear gents." Well, you can't use the word gent. I mean, I wonder what it's like when you go to the gents now, whether you have to say going to the non-gender specific lavatories. It's a phrase. It shows that you're a bit old, they say, using the word gents. Now, I mean, I don't regard myself as old, although some may disagree with that.
This caught my eye as well, because one of your lovely presenters, who's on, I believe, at 6 o'clock, Michelle Dewberry, she very often says, you know, thank you, gents. I don't think she's
polite.
I don't think she's going to be changing. But when you look into this story, there is a little bit more to this than meets the eye, because this email was sent round by management in this insurance company, and one of the ladies who was on a list to be made redundant, along with men, used that email as evidence as to why there was discrimination going on. So there was a little bit more to this, and what the court said was that, you know, this was clumsy language, but this was managerial incompetence. And I don't think we should in any way take that as meaning it's got any wider.
So hang on, the court even said it's clumsy language?
The court said it was clumsy language. I mean, they shouldn't be using that language, but what I'm saying is I don't think this means that we have to all change our behaviour because of this one.
But what next, Anna?
Decision.
I've noticed a trend among, particularly among younger people, to call people guys, even women.
Yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's approaching 10 to 4. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, a 12-year-old schoolgirl was punished by her teachers after wearing a Union Jack dress to her school's Culture Day. Now, Courtney Wright's father claimed that his daughter was told that Culture Day was not for her and that she shouldn't be and that she shouldn't be in school wearing that dress. So is this yet more proof that there is an erosion of British culture in our schools? Well, join me now is the Conservative MP for Romford, Andrew Rosendale. Andrew, always a pleasure. This story has really captured the imagination of Brits, and not in a good way. Many people feel that British culture is simply being erased, particularly in schools.
Well, it's outrageous, and I've long argued that British history, British culture, British values should be central to what's happening in the classroom. The trouble is, for too long, schools have essentially, not all schools, but some left-wing establishment-type figures have pushed against anything that is promoting Britain. And a lot of young people have been taught to dislike their own country. So for a little girl to be dragged out of a classroom purely because she's wearing a dress with the Union flag, I think it is outrageous. And I think the school needs to answer why this has been allowed to happen. The trouble is, it's happening everywhere. Schools and education establishments are basically dumbing down anything that's British. Oh, every other culture can be celebrated, but if it's English or it's British, it's discarded, and that's completely wrong.
And that's what was told to Courtney Wright, 12-year-old at the school. You get to celebrate being British every day. Today is for everybody else. Why? That's like saying, here's a day where it's not about British culture. If you said that about any other culture, they'd be held to pay for.
Absolutely. And this is where it's all gone wrong. So there needs to be a radical change in the way we teach our young people about the proud heritage of this country, about our national symbols. Every school should fly the Union flag from a flagpole outside of their school. It should be standard everywhere, and have the flag in the assembly in the school itself.
What about a national anthem in the morning?
A national anthem, I called for it in Parliament only 2 weeks ago at Business Questions. National anthem should be sung at least once a week in school assembly. We should show that we're proud of our country, because we do have a lot to be proud about. It's these left-wing woke people that try to discard it all and make us feel ashamed of being British. If our young people grow up believing that that's true, then that's going to really damage our country in the long term. So well done for the father of the girl that has raised this. Well done for fighting back. The schools apologised, and rightly so, but let it be a lesson to all other schools across the country. Doing your country down, trashing your national symbols, not flying the Union flag, which is a unifying symbol in our country, it's unacceptable in schools and educational establishments. We have to get rid of the woke agenda completely.
I've got to say, I think the singing of the national anthem in schools would be a majestic moment. There'd be a huge amount of resistance to that, wouldn't there?
I'm afraid that there are some... Look, in my constituency, it's quite different. I mean, most of my schools, they are proud of being British. Some of them do fly the Union Jack in Romford. And I have been to school assemblies where they have sung the national anthem. But, you know, Romford is a bit different than some of these other parts of the country, and certainly parts of inner London, where all this is frowned upon. So I think we need to restore these things, because otherwise our young people are going to grow up disliking their own country, even hating their own country. Now, what kind of nation are we building if our young people no longer respect British values, British traditions, our history and our great British way of life?
Andrew Rosendale, I think you're absolutely right. Now, we do have a statement from the school. The Stowe Valley Trust told GB News this: "We are committed to learning from this experience and ensuring that every student feels recognised and supported when expressing pride in their heritage." So there we go. A victory for common sense, a victory for the parents and the girl. I'll be joined by them later in the show. Thank you very much, Andrew Rosendale. Always a pleasure. Now, stay tuned, because later in the programme, I'll be joined by the dad of that girl, punished for wearing a Union Jack dress to celebrate her school's future. That's next. With me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. But first, here's your weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there. It's a very different day for many of us compared with a lot of the weather we've experienced through the summer so far. It's cool, cloudy, breezy, spells of rain and showers crossing the country, but all tending to ease later. We do have an area of low pressure moving through Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, and it's within this zone that there are some lively thunderstorms coming and going through the rest of the afternoon and into the evening. The spells of more persistent rain moving into the North Sea, the breeze easing, and showers, although they'll continue, will become fewer and further between over the night period, and by dawn, well, some clear spells out there and a fresh night to come, not too uncomfortable for sleeping. We do have some cloud and some outbreaks of rain returning to the southwest by the end of the night, and this is a slow-moving weather system, so mostly it will be confined to the southwest as we go through the day. Brighter skies are to be found further north, and plenty of sunshine for parts of northern and northwest Scotland. I think some lingering cloud there for the east and south of Scotland. A few remaining showers, but not many. Northern Ireland, a beautiful start to the day following the thunderstorms of Tuesday. It's plenty of sunshine from the word go, but a lot of cloud across central and eastern parts of England, and, like I say, a few showers. Now, the thickest cloud will be towards the southwest. This is going to be encroaching upon Somerset, Dorset, Devon through the day, into the south of Wales. A few spots of rain, but the most persistent weather likely for Cornwall and western parts of Devon. Elsewhere, bright enough, and actually feeling a little warmer with lighter winds compared to Tuesday, and temperatures reaching 27 or even 28 Celsius in places. Still scope for 1 or 2 showers for central and southern Scotland and northern England, but these will fade away later in the day, and then plenty of clear spells in the east as we begin Thursday, but this weather system will move into northwestern parts, bringing spells of rain, whilst it turns hot again in the southeast.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A702 northbound near Hilland is partially blocked due to a broken down vehicle. The M4 eastbound at junction 40 tieback is closing, with on-slip and off-slip closed from 7 to 11 tonight. Delays up to 15 minutes affect North Yorkshire's A19 southbound between the A684 and A61 due to a vehicle crossing the central reservation. In Cambridgeshire, the A14 westbound entry slip at junction 24B is closed. And on the trains, expect major disruptions between Hull and Selby and Hull and Goole, with no trains to or from Windermere. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK.
This was a serious departmental error. It was in clear breach of strict data protection protocols, and it was one of many data losses relating to the ARAP scheme during this period.
On today's show, astonishing breaking news. Up to 7,000 Afghans are being relocated to the United Kingdom in a secret scheme following the most serious MOD data breach in history. The big questions remain. Who's to blame? Why did the government gag the press? What will all of this cost? And why should the British taxpayer once again pick up the tab? And a bombshell new poll spells fear for Keir, as a new Corbyn-led party would tie with the Labour Party on 15%. And that would pave the way for Nigel Farage to steam into Downing Street. Labour would win just 45 seats, an astonishing loss of 366, with Reform bagging 442. Can you believe it? It's Jeremy Corbyn, Nigel Farage's secret weapon. Well, a full analysis of those who are going to lose their seats could be carnage. And a Reform council leader has raised eyebrows by demanding that Yvette Cooper increases immigration. Kent County Council leader Lyndon Camcaran has grave concerns as adult social care demands in her area cannot be met if care visas are clamped down upon. I'll grill the leader in question. And GB News viewers were outraged after a heartbroken 12-year-old called Courtney was sent home from school for wearing a Union Jack dress to celebrate British culture. On today's show, I'll be joined by her defiant father, Stuart, who roars, "We will never be shamed by virtue signallers." And patients are raising a glass to a GP who's urging Brits to ditch antidepressant pills and instead head to the boozer. Sir Sam Everington claims that beer gardens are a happy place and pubs form a vital role in social connections. That's my kind of doctor, and I'll speak to Sam later in the show. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. Once again, the lunatics have taken over our asylum system. MOD bungle could cost £7 billion maximum. We're being told, don't worry, it could only be £1 billion. How did this happen? Who's to blame? And why should the British taxpayer pick up the tab? And stunning data also out today now shows 1.26 million foreigners are now claiming universal credit in Britain at a cost of £1.2 billion every single month. And guess who's paying? That's right, you, the great British taxpayer. Do you feel sometimes our country is being led by clowns? If so, get in touch. gbnews.com/your say is the way to do it. But now's your headlines, and here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. The top stories: thousands of Afghans who supported British forces are being secretly relocated to the UK under an £850 million scheme triggered by a major data breach. Nearly 19,000 names and contact details were accidentally leaked by a defence official in 2022. But the Ministry of Defence only learned of this over a year later. The Afghanistan response route set up last year aims to protect up to 100,000 people at risk of Taliban reprisals. The government faces rising legal costs amid serious questions over accountability and delay. Defence Secretary John Healey says this was a serious departmental error.
This was a serious departmental error. It was in clear breach of strict data protection protocols, and it was one of many data losses relating to the ARAP scheme during this period.
New figures from the Department for Work and Pensions reveal nearly 1.3 million migrants are now claiming universal credit. That's a near 50% rise in claims since 2022, with EU nationals making up the majority at just under 800,000. Another 200,000 claims come from non-EU nationals with indefinite leave to remain, and around 120,000 from refugees. The surge is reigniting debate around welfare, immigration and who should be eligible for support. The BBC has published its annual salary report. Gary Lineker takes top of the list with more than £1.35 million despite stepping down from Match of the Day after 26 years. Other top earners include Fiona Bruce and Nick Robinson, all clearing £400,000 a year. Director General Tim Davie took home more than £540,000. The report lands amid a 10% rise in BBC revenue and fresh controversy with upheld complaints about MasterChef presenter Greg Wallace and co-host John Turode. Meanwhile, John Turode has confirmed he's the subject of a racist language allegation upheld in a review into co-host Greg Wallace's behaviour. Turode says he has no recollection of the 2018 or 2019 incident, but is shocked and saddened and insists he would never intend offence. The review upheld 45 allegations against Greg Wallace, mostly involving inappropriate sexual language and behaviour dating back to 2005. BBC's Director General Tim Davie this afternoon said he believes MasterChef does have a future with the broadcaster beyond 2028, adding it absolutely can survive and prosper. The two men who felled the tree at Sycamore Gap have each been jailed for 4 years and 3 months. A court heard it was an act of drunken stupidity. Former friends 39-year-old Daniel Graham and 32-year-old Adam Carruthers were convicted of criminal damage to the much-loved tree, which had stood for more than 100 years in a fold in the Northumberland landscape. They were also convicted of criminal damage to Hadrian's Wall, caused when the sycamore fell on the ancient monument in September 2022. Thames Water has plunged to a £1.6 billion loss, while its debt has ballooned to almost £17 billion. It comes as pollution incidents leapt 34%, and regulators have hit the firm with a record £122 million fine and rising penalties. The crisis hit suppliers serving 16 million people, still hunting for a rescue deal after investors ditched the lifeline. Executives face a grilling by MPs tomorrow over the bonuses and the threat of nationalisation as its finances creak. Donald Trump says he's disappointed in Vladimir Putin, but insists he's not done with the Russian leader. In an interview, the US president claimed a Ukraine peace deal was close 4 times, only for Putin to launch fresh attacks, including on a nursing home. Asked how he'd stop the bloodshed, Mr. Trump said, "We're working on it." The comments came just hours after he imposed fresh sanctions on buyers of Russian exports. He's also pledged new weapons for Ukraine. And the cost of some new electric cars will drop by up to £3,750 as the government reintroduces grants to boost EV sales. Discounts will apply to models under £37,000, with car makers able to apply from tomorrow. The scheme will run for 3 years, but critics warn a lack of public charging points still puts buyers off. The government's aiming for 300,000 chargers and a full petrol and diesel ban by 2030. And those are the latest headlines for now. More news in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Tatiana. Once again, it's immigration chaos. This time, up to 7,000 Afghans are being relocated to the United Kingdom in a secret scheme following the most serious data breach in MOD history. So far, it's cost £400 million to date, and that number is going up. And meanwhile, new figures out today show that 1.26 million immigrants are now claiming universal credit. That's an astonishing 50% increase in claims since 2022. And as you can see on your screen, the biggest recipient, those from the European Union, making up almost 800,000 of those 1.26 million claims. Think about that, Remainers. Remember how we were told that everybody that came from the EU was paying in more than they took out. Well, reality bites. Here's the data. Lots to discuss there. And joining me in the studio is GB News' Home and Security Editor, Mark White. And I'm also delighted to be joined by the former Conservative MP, Heather Wheeler. Welcome to you both. Mark, let's start with you. To coin that old phrase, it once again feels like the lunatics have taken over the asylum system. An incredible data breach, so many questions. How did this happen? Who was to blame? Why did the government gag the press for 2 years? And what on earth can be done about it? And it's incredibly expensive, and British taxpayers, once again, expected to foot the bill.
Well, there's no doubt it's expensive, that's for sure. It's deeply embarrassing, there's no doubt about that as well. But it was a mistake, it was human error. It wasn't a deliberate attempt to disseminate information out there into the hands of those who would seek to do these individuals harm. It was a mistake made, we understand, by a member of the military when they sent out an email with these spreadsheets with the details of thousands of people who were applying for resettlement to the UK because they had claimed they had worked with the UK military or UK government during the time that the UK was in Afghanistan between 2001 and 2021, before, of course, the Taliban regained control of that country and Western militaries evacuated and left the country itself. So it's a mistake that led to the previous government seeking an injunction, not a super injunction, that was elevated by the courts. But they sought an injunction so that there could be a confidential, secret process to ensure that these individuals were taken out of Afghanistan in a timely manner and in a discreet manner so as not to put them at further risk. Now, they believe that they've done that the high-risk individuals, some 900 were told in the initial tranche, with their families as well, so it's 4,500 in that initial tranche, and then the figure will rise to 6,900 after another 600 high-risk individuals and their families come. They are currently not yet in the UK, but there has been a risk assessment that's been carried out by the UK government, and they believe that the risk to those that may still be on the list but remaining in Afghanistan is not significant enough anyway to be removed from Afghanistan and for there still to be a secret process.
OK, Heather, let's bring you in now.
Yeah.
Heather Wheeler, this wasn't a Conservative government mistake, but it happened on the Conservative government's watch. Yeah. A lot of people are saying this super injunction that's put out there is an attempt to gag the press, an attempt to cover up this unholy mess. What do you say to that?
I totally agree it's an unholy mess. I also want to apologise to the Afghan families who have been put at risk through this human error. I think it was the right thing to do this in a really careful, every step taken being just super careful so that the right people who are at huge risk are going to be allowed to come here. And it's really important that we owe these people a duty of care. They worked with our special forces. They worked with our Marines. They worked with our armed forces out there.
Well, we don't know that all of them did, because every single person on this was all of their families, all of their associates. They were also offered this blanket coverage. And if you can I just say, if you would like to apologise to the Afghanis, would you like to apologise to the British taxpayers who've got to pick up the tab?
War is expensive. Mistakes are made in war. And we have to live with the consequences of that. And if one of the consequences is we have to give refuge to these people whose lives will be at risk because they work for us, then that's what we have to do. Wars are expensive.
But it's sad. John Healey in the Commons today said there's little evidence of retribution from the Taliban. It's highly unlikely that being on this spreadsheet will be the piece of information that's endangered life. So do you think perhaps the reaction was too extreme to offer comfort and solace to too many people?
No, I think John Healey obviously is Secretary of State for Defence, and I've never been in the Defence Department. He obviously has got more information up to date than I do, which is absolutely fine and proper. But the information that was going around before, that if you'd worked for the Triples, then certainly people who work for them have been murdered. So no, I say again, apologise to them. They did their work for us. They are highly qualified people, And if we give them refuge, then that's the right thing to do.
Okay, can I also, as you're both here, let's talk about the universal credit figures out today. I don't know if we can get that chart back on our screen. About the astonishing cost of what is now going out. 1.26 million immigrants are now claiming universal credit in Britain, a 50% increase in claims in just 2 years. It's astonishing numbers. 800,000 of them are from the European Union, and of this figure, by the way, the vast majority are unemployed. 737,000 unemployed, 510,000 on in-work benefits. Mark White, I'll start with you on this. It just sends out the message, does it not? That not only we see week in, week out, it seems to pay more now in Britain to not work, but it also pays more to not work if you're not even from Britain.
Well, certainly those are concerning figures. There's no doubt about it. And I think it will give some weight to the argument that there should be a period of which someone coming to this country should have to contribute to the system before they're eligible for any of the benefits from this country. And I don't know how long any of those individuals may have been here and whether they've been paying into the system for a number of years. We don't have that on that particular breakdown. But headline figure-wise, of course, it's concerning.
And we don't know how many of them might have been from Afghanistan. Heather Wheeler, do you think that this happened again on the Conservative watch from 2022, but it has escalated greatly under the Labour government? Do you think it's time for voters want to see radical policy initiatives now? Like Mark White said there, if you come to Britain, no benefits for a period of years. I used to live in Australia. It was abundantly clear to me. Yeah. If I couldn't afford to work, I had to clear off home. That was the deal. That was a social contract. Why can't we do the same?
Well, first of all, the EU nationals, they had to register before when Brexit was happening. They had about 18-month window to do that. And they would have been paying taxes, they would have been paying NI, and there is that 5-year gap that you have to be here 5 years and paying in before you get any benefits. So that was put through. It is really interesting to me that they are still here and receiving those benefits. I think perhaps this government ought to look into whether they're receiving the benefits back in their own country. Mm-hmm. And if that is happening, should that that topic, that group, be excluded?
But I think the chances of that happening at the moment seem like a cold day in hell. Like the Labour Party can't even vote to cut the benefits by a single penny. Thank you very much. Go on.
No, I was going to say, well, EU people can't vote in national elections, so it wouldn't actually cut their nose off to spite their face to do it, would it?
There you go. Let me join my next guest now, and that's the founder of the Sanctuary Foundation, Dr. Krish Kandiah. Dr. Kandiah, pleasure to have your company. Let's return, if we could, to this story of the Afghan asylum seekers. Do you think it was the right thing to do for the government to offer a blanket asylum to everybody on that list, despite the fact that now it transpires not all of them were at risk?
I actually do, Martin, and it's nice to see you again. Do you remember the summer of 2021 when Kabul fell and we saw people rushing to the airport, cramming their way into cargo planes, people throwing their babies to American military personnel, trying to get away from the oncoming onslaught of the Taliban? And as has been said by your other panelists, we had a huge operation in Afghanistan for 20 years. I think it cost around £32 billion to have that operation in Afghanistan. And we relied on local people giving us interpretation, security, all sorts of help from civilians. And we owed it to them to offer them sanctuary. Now, imagine that you're a guy working for the British military, just giving you sanctuary is no help. What about your wife and your children? You need to be able to offer them support too. Otherwise, you're depriving these families from the time together. So I do think it was appropriate to offer asylum. It is an absolute catastrophic mess. And look, I've sent emails in mistake myself. I'm sure all of us have. But there ought to have been systems in place to make it impossible to share the confidential details of 18,000 people and put them in such danger. So I'm really pleased everyone's kind of owning up to the mess, recognising it's a problem and offering a humanitarian solution going forward.
Dr. Kandai, as I have you here, you no doubt overheard our previous conversation there about universal credit and the ballooning 50% increase in 2 years of foreign nationals claiming universal credit in Britain. What do you say to the notion that we should just say, do you know what, if you come to Britain, if you can pay your way, if you can prove you have enough money in the bank, great, you're welcome. That's what they do in Australia. That's what they do in the United States. Is it time to say, if you can't afford to pay your way in Britain, no benefits for 5 years?
Well, that is the kind of deal that we offered people from Hong Kong when they arrived, that they needed to be able to pay for their contribution. So
Right.
I'm not sure of the background behind this conversation, but I think our system ought to be resilient. It ought to be able to test who is eligible and who isn't. And I think wherever someone's born is kind of a secondary question. If they've got the right to remain in the country and they need the support, I want to give it to them. But there are other groups that we have been a little bit more stringent on, like the Hong Kongers.
Yeah, and maybe if we had, equality of stringency, the British taxpayer might not be headbutting their desk every time these figures come out. What a day it's been. 2 gigantic cock-ups in one day. As far as the British taxpayer is concerned, a lot of people will be asking, what's the point getting out of work at 5 in the morning to go out there in the ice cold simply to pay all of these bills? Thanks for joining us, as ever, as the founder of the Sanctuary Foundation, Dr. Krish Kandai, and also thanks to my 2 studio guests, Mark White and Heather Weeder. Thanks to you both. Now, Chris Hope was going to be with us, but he's too busy in lobby. We'll catch up with him after the break. And still to come also, I'll be joined by the warrior against net zero reforms, Richard Tice, as drivers are set to be offered thousands of pounds to switch to electric cars. The big question is, do they even want them? I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Business News Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 4:24. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, motorists will be given up to £3,750 to switch to electric cars. Now, this comes as ministers seek to meet their net zero targets, with the scheme running until 2029. Now, the government has set aside an incredible £650 million for the grants, which will not be means tested. Well, I'm joined in the studio now by the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice. Mr Tice, welcome to the show.
Where do I apply for Migrant? I mean, if it's not means tested, everybody can apply. If you want a new... I mean, this is an absolute scandal of monumental proportions. I'm raging furious about this, Martin. Honestly, it's designed to prop up the fact that most people can't afford an electric car, the range isn't good enough, the infrastructure's not there, and guess who's the biggest buyer of electric cars now? 3 guesses. You only need 1 guess.
Those on benefit?
The Motability Scheme.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, Motability.
And the Motability Scheme, well intended, when it was originally set up, has been basically completely hijacked by the electric car industry and people who are abusing a scheme that has become like a Ponzi scheme. It really is. And now the whole motor industry is completely reliant on it. 1 in 5 cars sold in the UK are now Motability cars. If you go to any car dealership, the biggest sign you will see is a huge flag, Motability. You've got BMW advertising their wonderful big new cars available on Motability scheme. No adjustments required if you've got access issues whatsoever. It's an absolute outrage. It's a scam. It's a Ponzi scheme, and the British people, I think, are raging furious about it.
And it turned out in this report today, Richard Tice, that half of Motability customers can't even charge their cars at home. They haven't even got the facilities to do so. But, of course, those in favour of the scheme would say this is the way to try and encourage people to take vehicles that are more environmentally suitable, that keep our air cleaner. Do they have a point?
Well, if you look at the mines in other parts of the world, in order to dig out the rare earth metals, the abuse and the damage to the environment in some of these countries, in South America, in Africa, if you're looking at the planet as a whole, frankly, I don't think they have a point at all. But yes, electric cars are quieter. There's a place for them. Technology is a great thing. But what you shouldn't be doing is penalising the British taxpayer and subsidising, in particular, this Motability scheme with these EV, with these EV grants. And essentially what it's doing, it's propping up with a bigger subsidy because basically the customer is saying, we don't want this. And when you hear Labour MPs saying EV car sales are going well, they're only going well because of the Motability, which is the biggest buyer of them, and because of these vast subsidies. All our expense.
Richard Tice, as I have you here, could I get your reaction to some universal credit figures that came out today? I think we've got a graphic we can get back on our screen, but I'll read them out for you so you get up to speed. It was released today by the Department of Work and Pensions. Now, 1.26 million people born overseas are claiming universal credit in Britain. That's a 50% increase. 50% increase since 2022, just in 2 years. Of those numbers, almost 750,000 are unemployed. 500,000 are in work but still rely on universal credit. And most of them, as you can see on your screen, are from the European Union. When we told that people from the EU came here to work and put in more than they took out.
So is it a coincidence that when the Tories opened the doors to mass, cheap, low-skilled immigration from 2022, supposedly because we needed the jobs, all of a sudden there's a pro-rata massive increase in these benefit claims? We're told people to come to work to fill the jobs. Well, fine, then come and work. Don't come and claim benefits. It's very, very simple. Actually, I think the British people would support a policy that says, well, maybe benefits should just be for British nationals. And if you want the great privilege of coming to live and work in the UK, the key is work. The key is speak the language, The key is definitely not then claim benefits because you haven't chipped in and contributed. So I'm not sure why any of this money is suitable. It's about £1 billion a month, 12 billion a year. Rachel Reeves is short of a few quid. Well, that's pretty much, as far as we can see, the fastest way to save it. And I just think it's completely unfair on British taxpayer. Now, some will say, oh, but hang on, if they've worked for a few years, they've chipped in. Yeah, but they haven't chipped in to the infrastructure that they've been lucky enough to come and enjoy. We all have. Our parents have. Our grandparents have. So actually, I don't think that washes either. There's a serious national debate is urgently required as this data comes out. And you have to then say, why wasn't this data out earlier? What were the Tories doing? I mean, this happened under their watch. Why didn't they release this data? And then we could have discussed it and realised it needed to stop.
What kind of time frame, for example, might you put on that? Like, for example, in France, they said 5 years. 5 years of coming to Britain, and on the way in, like I lived in Australia, it was abundantly clear to me if I couldn't support myself, I had to clear off home. That was a social
Why
contract.
should there be any time frame? It's very simple. If you come here to work and you're not working, the deal is find a job, or in the nicest possible way, return from where you came. If the key is work. Work is a great thing. You don't come here to take the mickey out of the British taxpayer. We're all so angry about this. It's unbelievable. And I just repeat the point to those who say, oh, yes, but you've paid your national insurance. That's a contribution to the infrastructure that you haven't paid for that is previously here. All the hospitals, everything, all the GP surgeries, the pharmacies, the railway stations, the roads, we paid for that infrastructure. So actually, it's about time that other people chipped in.
Strong words indeed, Richard Tice. And we do have a quick right of reply on the previous story, the electric vehicle story. It's from Jonathan Reynolds, the business secretary, who told GB News this. We're helping British car makers get to the front of the pack by working hand in hand with investors to build a globally competitive electric vehicle supply chain in the UK. And Keir Starmer announced a crackdown on net migration earlier this month. They included proposals to extend eligibility for indefinite leave to remain, effectively denying tens of thousands access to benefits for longer. And under his plans, migrants will only be able to earn citizenship earlier if they can show a real and lasting contribution to the economy and to the society. So thanks for that. Thank you, Richard Tice, for joining me in the studio. Now, lots more still to come between now and 5 o'clock, including I'll be speaking to the Minister of Armed Forces, Luke Pollard, about the secret Afghan asylum scheme that's left many believing the lunatics have once again taken over our asylum system. But first, here's your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much and good afternoon. The headlines at 4:30. The data breach which exposed details of Afghans was a deeply regrettable incident that placed thousands of vulnerable people at risk and should never happen again, but no further regulatory action is required at this time, the Information Commissioner's office has said. Defence Secretary John Healey spoke in the Commons this afternoon.
This was a serious departmental error. It was in clear breach of strict data protection protocols, and it was one of many data losses relating to the ARAP scheme during this period.
New figures from the Department for Work and Pensions reveal nearly 1.3 million migrants are now claiming universal credit. That's a near 50% rise in claims since 2022, with the EU nationals making up the majority at just under 800,000. The BBC is facing a storm of controversy, with MasterChef presenter John Turode now part of an inquiry over allegations of racist language. Turode denied the claim, stating, "I do not believe it happened." Daniel Graham and Adam Carruthers, who felled the tree at Sycamore Gap in Northumberland, have each been jailed for 4 years and 3 months at Newcastle Crown Court after they were convicted of 2 counts of criminal damage. Those are the latest headlines for now. More news from me at 5 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hi there. It's a very different day for many of us compared with a lot of the weather we've experienced through the summer so far. It's cool, cloudy, breezy, spells of rain and showers crossing the country, but all tending to ease later. We do have an area of low pressure moving through Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, and it's within this zone that there are some lively thunderstorms coming and going through the rest of the afternoon and into the evening. The spells of more persistent rain moving into the North Sea, the breeze easing, and showers, although they'll continue, will become fewer and further between over the night period, and by dawn, well, some clear spells out there and a fresh night to come, not too uncomfortable for sleeping. We do have some cloud and some outbreaks of rain returning to the southwest by the end of the night, and this is a slow-moving weather system, so mostly it will be confined to the southwest as we go through the day. Brighter skies are to be found further north, and plenty of sunshine for parts of northern and northwest Scotland. I think some lingering cloud there for the east and south of Scotland. A few remaining showers, but not many. Northern Ireland, a beautiful start to the day following the thunderstorms of Tuesday. It's plenty of sunshine from the word go, but a lot of cloud across central and eastern parts of England, and like I say, a few showers. Now, the thickest cloud will be towards the southwest. This is going to be encroaching upon Somerset, Dorset, Devon through the day, into the south of Wales. A few spots of rain, but the most persistent weather likely for Cornwall and western parts of Devon. Elsewhere, bright enough, and actually feeling a little warmer with lighter winds compared to Tuesday, and temperatures reaching 27 or even 28 Celsius in places. Still scope for one or two showers for central and southern Scotland and northern England, but these will fade away later in the day, and then plenty of clear spells in the east as we begin Thursday, but this weather system will move into northwestern parts, bringing spells of rain, whilst it turns hot again in the southeast.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Motorists on the A702 northbound near Hilland face delays due to a broken down vehicle. Roadworks on the M4 eastbound at junction 40 in Tyback have closed both slip roads until 11 tonight. An accident on the A19 southbound in North Yorkshire has closed one lane, with traffic resuming by 7:42. In Cambridgeshire, the A14 westbound entry slip at junction 24B is closed, likely clearing by 8:25. And on the trains, Hull trains and Northern report disruptions between Hull, Selby and Goole with no services to Windermere. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. Your time is 4:36 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, up to 7,000 Afghans are being relocated to the UK in a secret scheme following the most serious data breach in MOD history. Now, so far, it has cost £400 million and rising. In fact, it could be closer to £1 billion. Well, joining me now is the Armed Forces Minister, Luke Pollard, from the Ministry of Defence. Mr Pollard, a pleasure to have your company. A lot of people have been looking at this story today and just concluding the lunatics have taken over the asylum system. How can a data breach of this magnitude even have happened in the first place?
Well, I was shocked when I first learnt of this data breach that happened in 2022 under the last government. It seems that a data set was accidentally emailed out of our secure systems that included the names of 18,714 Afghans. The government of the day, the Conservative government, applied to the High Court for an injunction to prevent the publication of that information, and they were granted a super injunction. Now, what that means is we're not allowed to report the existence of the order in the first place that gagged journalists, that prevented the discussion in Parliament, and the decision that the government has today taken reassesses the risk about the data breach, that ends the secret relocation programme we inherited from the Conservatives, and for the very first time means that we can put this information in the public domain for full parliamentary and public and media scrutiny. That's the right decision to do.
Luke Pollard, I've spoken to two former Conservative MPs today on my show, and both defended the super injunction, saying it was the right thing to do to protect the Afghans involved. Are you saying, actually, this was part of a Tory cover-up?
No, it was certainly a Conservative government decision, but probably not an easy one. It will be for the Conservative MPs and ministers to account for their decisions, but certainly the assessment that was done at the time suggested that the data breach put people who were on the list at greater risk. Now, many years have passed since that data breach and since the Taliban took over Afghanistan, and we commissioned a review, an independent review from the former Deputy Chief of Defence Intelligence to reassess that risk, to understand whether it had deteriorated, had lowered. Now, that Rimmer review, undertaken by Paul Rimmer, has found that the Taliban have access to enormous amounts of data already, that they're not having a systematic programme of targeting people on such a data set, even if they had access to it, which we assess they don't currently do. So therefore, it was our decision that the super injunction, the unprecedented steps that the previous government had taken, were no longer proportionate. That's why, having reviewed this carefully, and this is not an easy decision because lives could have been at risk here, we've taken the considered decision to end that secret relocation scheme and to put it in the public domain.
OK, Luke Pollard, we initially were told earlier today when the story broke this could cost British taxpayers, because that's who pays the bill here, British taxpayers, £7 billion. Then it came out, actually, it was only 400 million, but there could be an extra 450 million. Well, that's £1 billion already. And astonishingly, we've also learned this afternoon that there could be a legal case against the British government by the Afghanis in question for their data being infringed, their safety being infringed, and that could put an extra £1 billion on the bill that all has to be picked up by the British taxpayer. How much is this mess going to cost?
Well, to date, it's cost roughly £400 million to respond to the data leak and to have those people the most affected by the data leak brought to the UK. It will roughly cost the same again to complete that piece of operation. We've decided that we are closing that scheme now because we no longer feel the risk is as present as it was when the Conservative government previously decided to start that scheme. That will take the total cost of this data breach that should never have happened to around £850 million. Now, the £7 billion figure that you mentioned there is the total cost of all Afghan relocations, including for those Afghans who fought alongside our British forces over 20 years in Afghanistan, who we have a moral obligation to support. I think many of your viewers will know that they have been Afghan interpreters, people who worked alongside our forces over many years. It's right we support those that are at risk from Taliban reprisals. I think that's what the British public would like to see us doing, and by closing this scheme today, we can do that. But what we have also done by taking this decision is save £1.2 billion. That's money that the previous government planned to spend to bring these Afghans affected by the data breach to the UK. We've decided not to spend that money. As a result, there'll be 9,500 fewer Afghans brought to the UK that were affected by this data breach. But we should honour our obligation to those Afghans who fought and served alongside British forces. That's what we intend to do, completing all those relocations by the end of this Parliament, honouring our obligation in full.
Luke Pollard, earlier on in the chamber, John Healey, Defence Minister, said there is little evidence of retribution from the Taliban. It was highly unlikely that being on this spreadsheet would be the piece of information that endangers life. With that in mind, Luke Pollard, how about deporting some of these people if their life isn't at risk? Why should the British taxpayer constantly be the safety net for the entire world?
Well, I'm not certain that is the case. I mean, certainly when it comes to Afghans that fought alongside our troops, I think there is strong cross-party support and strong public support for us looking after them in there. What we will do is honour our commitment and honour our decisions that we have taken here, because it's right that we do so. However, it's also right that as we inherited a secret resettlement route and a super injunction that prevented media organisations like yourselves from reporting, parliamentarians like me from raising it in the House of Commons, we felt that that was disproportionate given the fact that the independent review had found that the Taliban already has enormous amounts of information from when they took over the Afghan government. That's biometric data on everyone who served for the government, passport records, pay records. As such, we felt that by being on this leaked data set, that should never have been leaked never have been lost in the first place, that didn't put you at elevated risk. I think it was the right decision to ask for the injunction to be lifted, the right decision to close that secret resettlement scheme that we inherited, and the right decision to put it in the public domain, because there should never be a secret resettlement route that's hidden from the public.
OK, Luke Pollard, as I have you here, could I also run you through some universal credit data which was released this afternoon? 1.26 million foreign nationals, immigrants, are now claiming universal credit in the United Kingdom. This is over £1 billion every single month. That's a 50% increase since 2022. The biggest recipients are 800,000 European Union nationals. Do you think it's high time to place restrictions on foreign nationals being able to access British benefits willy-nilly?
Well, I mean, we certainly feel that as a government, we want more people into work, more people working, paying taxes, contributing to our society. That's why we've been taking the steps to change the welfare system that we inherited. Certainly, it was our view that the system we inherited was broken. It wasn't helping enough people into work.
Mr. Pollard, your own backbenchers prevented you from even making a single penny of cuts to the benefits bill.
Well, certainly the welfare bill that is still going through Parliament provides additional support to get people back into work, something that we know is important. I want to see more people working. The growth that we're getting back into our economy, the opportunities that are being created, provides the opportunity for people to work. And so we remain committed to that welfare reform in terms of getting people back into work. But I want to see people working. I think for far too long, the previous government accepted a situation where people were not working properly. Now, that's not acceptable. That's why Rachel Reeves and the Prime Minister have been focused on getting people into work. And as we put more investment into our economy, as we cut NHS waiting lists, mean there's fewer people waiting for an operation and therefore more people able to return to work, we can get more people supporting that economic growth that we all want to see that benefits everyone in our economy.
You don't think it's fair to say then the party of the working people seems to be becoming the party of people who simply don't want to work? You're refusing to cut the benefits bill.
No, I don't think that's right at all. We want people to work. I mean, literally, Labour is the party of work. That's what Labour means. But what we need to do is understand the obstacles that we inherited, the systems that made it harder. So we're introducing a right to try, for instance. So for those people who are on benefits that are worried about returning to work in case it doesn't work out and they lose that financial support, a right to try is being reintroduced, which means they can give work a go. They can get a job, they can see the benefits of it. And if it doesn't work, then they will be able to continue to get that support. But if it does work, and we know the huge opportunities that work provides to people in terms of good mental health, better physical health and better opportunities, that is a way of helping people to get off those benefits, to get into work and contribute to our economic growth that we need.
OK, thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have your time. That's the Armed Forces Minister, Luke Pollard from the MOD. Thank you. Now we've been sought to some holiday sun, and here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's pretty unsettled across the eastern parts of Europe as we go through this week. Frequent showers bring the risk of some intense thundery downpours. A different story further west though, across Madeira and the Canary Islands. It's dry here on Wednesday, also dry across parts of Portugal and Spain. Meanwhile, further east, Italy will see a few showers, but the showers more frequent, more intense towards the east. And like I said, that brings the risk of some heavy thundery downpours. Through the rest of the week, it's looking largely dry for most.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB News newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Allergy practitioner Dr. Claire Anyamasigwe joins us now. Good to see you this morning.
Very good.
Does the hot weather necessarily mean more pollen?
It does. It actually accelerates the issue. So you've got pollen from the trees, from the grass, you've got pollution, and now you've got the heat wave as well. So that concoction flares up the skin, especially around the nostrils. We're streaming, we're sniffling, we're itching our eyes. So for me, as an allergist, my practice is about advocating for plant-based antihistamines. So I think the prep starts the night before. You're washing the clothes that you've worn the night, during the day, so you're not bringing pollen into the home. You are eating quercetin-rich ingredients like leeks, garlic, kale. So you can make yourself a lovely soup. I would say use them together. If you are somebody that already eats quercetin-rich foods in your diet, you're doing a more plant-based diet, then you're ahead of the game. But if you're not and you've suddenly been hit this week, 26 Celsius is going higher every day. 16 million of us are suffering with hay fever. 3.4 million of that have hay fever and asthma. So for those sufferers, they're looking for a solution right now. I would combine the two. I would start changing my diet to match what I've suggested, and I would also do what your GP suggests.
Do any of these things, if you take them year in, year out, do they lessen do they have an impact over time and you become less reactive to pollen?
Yes, absolutely. And that's why I'm really advocating for children. If we can get parents watching this to start children with natural raw honey, so find out about your local beekeepers, start spreading your natural jams.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It is 4:51. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, a 12-year-old girl was punished by her teachers after wearing a Union Jack dress to her school's Culture Day. The Courtney's father, Stuart, claimed his daughter was told that Culture Day was not for her and she shouldn't be punished for celebrating being British. Is this more proof there is an erosion of British culture in our schools? Let's go to a head teacher now at St Thomas of the Apostle, Serge Safi. Serge, what do you make of this nonsense?
Nonsense doesn't cut it, I'm afraid. I mean, how many times do we hear the word appalling, disgraceful, outrageous? But if you can just indulge me for a moment, can I read you part 2 of teacher standards in this country? There's been passed through Parliament, our education system. I quote the following. Part 2 of the teacher standards focuses on personal and professional conduct, emphasising the expectation for teachers to uphold high standards of behaviour, both within and outside the school environment. This includes demonstrating respect for pupils, safeguarding their well-being, and don't choke on this one, and promoting British values. You had an MP on earlier on. He's in that. He should make himself very aware and maybe have a word with Bridget Phillipson and ask her what she's going to do. The school seemingly has apologised. That won't cut it as far as I'm concerned. This is what Ofsted's exactly for. I, too, am absolutely sick of political ideology invading the minds of our kids, being pushed by teachers who, quite frankly, shouldn't be in their position. But who made this decision? Why did they make the decision? And something big has to be done about this. These are our kids, for goodness sake. We live in the best country in the world. That's why everybody wants to come here. It's not, listen, I try not to rant. because I know you get me going quite a lot.
No, I like it when you rant, Serge. Go on, you've got 15 seconds.
This needs to be sorted. It's a contravening the teacher standards of this country, and something needs to be done by whoever made these decisions. I'm sorry, a sorry is not good enough.
Serge Safi, always pure poetry in motion. Thank you very much for joining us on the show. Pleasure to have your company now. Spokesman for the Stowe Valley Trust told GB News this: "We're committed to learning from this experience and ensuring that every student feels recognised and supported when expressing pride in their heritage." Now, stay tuned, because I'll be joined by the dad of the girl, and I've just learned, joined by Courtney herself. The pair of them will be joining me on the show soon. I can't wait for that. Stuart and Courtney, the people of the moment. With me, Martin Daubney on GB News.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there. It's a very different day for many of us compared with a lot of the weather we've experienced through the summer so far. It's cool, cloudy, breezy, spells of rain and showers crossing the country, but all tending to ease later. We do have an area of low pressure moving through Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, and it's within this zone that there are some lively thunderstorms coming and going through the rest of the afternoon and into the evening. With the spells of more persistent rain moving into the North Sea, the breeze easing, and showers, although they'll continue, will become fewer and further between over the night period, and by dawn, well, some clear spells out there and a fresh night to come, not too uncomfortable for sleeping. We do have some cloud and some outbreaks of rain returning to the southwest by the end of the night, and this is a slow-moving weather system, so mostly it will be confined to the southwest as we go through the day. Brighter skies are to be found further north, and plenty of sunshine for parts of northern and northwest Scotland. I think some lingering cloud there for the east and south of Scotland. A few remaining showers, but not many. Northern Ireland, a beautiful start to the day following the thunderstorms of Tuesday. It's plenty of sunshine from the word go, but a lot of cloud across central and eastern parts of England, and, like I say, a few showers. Now, the thickest cloud will be towards the southwest. This is going to be encroaching upon Somerset, Dorset, Devon through the day, into the south of Wales. A few spots of rain, but the most persistent weather likely for Cornwall and western parts of Devon. Elsewhere, bright enough, and actually feeling a little warmer with lighter winds compared to Tuesday, and temperatures reaching 27 or even 28 Celsius in places. Still scope for 1 or 2 showers for central and southern Scotland and northern England, but these will fade away later in the day, and then plenty of clear spells in the east as we begin Thursday, but this weather system will move into northwestern parts, bringing spells of rain, whilst it turns hot again in the southeast.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A725 Wraith faces restrictions due to flooding. Proceed cautiously. In Cambridgeshire, all lanes are closed on the A14 westbound entry slip at junction 24B, expected to clear around 9 o'clock tonight. The M25 anti-clockwise between junction 1A and junction 31 has lane closures due to a road traffic incident. In Devon, the A30 westbound between the junctions with the A375 and the M5 has one lane closed due to a collision, and on the trains there is major disruption between Hull and Goole and no trains to or from Windermere. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
£54,321 cash could be yours. Cash that you could spend however you like. It's like having an extra £1,000 each week for a whole year to play with. Someone is guaranteed to win this amazing amount of cash, so make sure that someone could be you. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
The Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK.
This was a serious departmental error. It was in clear breach of strict data protection protocols, and it was one of many data losses relating to the ARAP scheme during this period.
Astonishing breaking news this afternoon. Up to 7,000 Afghans are being relocated to the UK in a secret scheme following the most serious MOD data breach in history. Huge questions remain. Who's to blame? Why did the government gag the press for 2 entire years? What will all of this mess cost? And why should once again the British taxpayer be picking up the tab? And a bombshell new poll spells fear for Keir as a new Corbyn-led party would tie with Labour on 15%. And paved the way for Nigel Farage to steam into Downing Street. Labour would win just 45 seats, an incredible loss of 366, with Reform bagging 442. Is Jeremy Corbyn Nigel Farage's secret weapon? And a full analysis on the entire Labour cabinet losing their seats, bar one. And a Reform Council leader has raised eyebrows by demanding that Yvette Cooper increases immigration. You heard that right, increases it. Well, the Kent County Council leader, Lyndon Kemcaron, has grave concerns that adult social care demands in her area cannot be met if care visas are clamped down upon. I'll grill the leader in question. And GB News viewers were outraged after heartbroken Courtney, a 12-year-old girl, was sent home from school for wearing a Union Jack dress to celebrate British Culture. On today's show, I'll be joined by Courtney and her defiant dad, Stuart, who roars, "We will never be shamed by virtual signals." And here's a story I can drink to, because patients are raising a glass to a GP who's urging Brits to ditch their antidepressant pills and instead head to the boozer. Sir Sam Everington claims beer gardens are a happy place and pubs form a vital role in social connections. I'll speak to Sam later in the show, a doctor I'd love to have. And I think we've got some breaking news for you now, and is this. John Turode has been sacked by the BBC. His contract with MasterChef will not be renewed. This, of course, following on from the Greg Wallace scandal. A report out in the newspapers today implied that John Turode used racist language in the past, a claim he denied. He said he didn't remember even saying it and claimed nobody was offended at the time. But breaking news, John Turode has been sacked by the BBC. His contract will not be renewed, piling further pressure onto the BBC. Already under the cosh over its Gaza documentary, over that man there, Greg Wallace, over Glastonbury, over its pay figures out today. Another dark day for the BBC and for that man there, John Turode, sacked by the BBC. We'll have more on that throughout the show. Get in touch the usual way. gbnews.com/your say is the way to do it. But without any further ado, here's your headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much. That breaking news this hour that John Turode's contract on MasterChef will not be renewed. The BBC and production company Banijay UK have said this afternoon. It's after Turode confirmed he's the subject of a racist language allegation upheld in a review into co-host Greg Wallace's behaviour. He previously said he has no recollection of the 2018 or 2019 incident, but is shocked and saddened, and he insists he would never intend offence. The review upheld 45 allegations against Wallace, mostly involving inappropriate sexual language and behaviour dating back to 2005. BBC's Director General Tim Davie this afternoon said he believes MasterChef does have a future with the broadcaster beyond 2028, adding it absolutely can survive and prosper. Meanwhile, the BBC has published its annual salary report today. Gary Lineker takes top of the list with more than £1.35 million a year, despite stepping down from Match of the Day after 26 years. Other top earners include Fiona Bruce and Nick Robinson, all clearing £400,000 a year. Director General Tim Davie took home more than £540,000. The report lands amid a 10% rise in BBC revenue and that fresh controversy with upheld complaints about MasterChef presenter Greg Wallace and co-host John Turode. The data breach, which exposed details of Afghans, was a deeply regrettable incident that placed thousands of vulnerable people at risk and should never happen again. But no further regulatory action is required at this time, the Information Commissioner's Office has said this afternoon. Thousands of Afghans who supported British forces are being secretly relocated to the UK under an £850 million scheme triggered by that data breach. Nearly 19,000 names and contact details were accidentally leaked by a defence official in 2022. The Afghanistan response route aims to protect up to 100,000 people at risk of Taliban reprisals. The government faces rising legal costs amid serious questions over accountability and delay. Defence Secretary John Healey spoke in the Commons this afternoon.
This was a serious departmental error. It was in clear breach of strict data protection protocols, and it was one of many data losses relating to the ARAP scheme during this period.
New figures from the Department for Work and Pensions reveal almost 1.3 million migrants are now claiming universal credit. That's a near 50% rise in claims since 2022, with EU nationals making up the majority at just under 800,000. Another 200,000 claims come from non-EU nationals with indefinite leave to remain, and around 120,000 from refugees. The surge is reigniting debate around welfare, immigration and who should be eligible for support. The two men who felled the tree at Sycamore Gap have each been jailed for 4 years and 3 months. A court heard it was an act of drunken stupidity. Former friends, 39-year-old Daniel Graham and 32-year-old Adam Carruthers, were convicted of criminal damage to the much-loved tree, which had stood for more than 100 years in a folded Northumberland landscape. They were also convicted of criminal damage to Hadrian's Wall, caused when the sycamore fell on the ancient monument in September of 2022. Donald Trump says he's disappointed in Vladimir Putin, but insists he's not done with the Russian leader. In an interview, the US president claimed a Ukraine peace deal was close 4 times, only for Putin to launch fresh attacks, including on a nursing home. Asked how he'd stop the bloodshed, Mr. Trump said, "We're working on it." The comments came just hours after he imposed fresh sanctions on buyers of Russian exports. He's also pledged new weapons for Ukraine. And the cost of some new electric cars will drop by up to £3,750 as the government reintroduces grants to boost EV sales. Discounts will apply to models under £37,000, with car makers able to apply from tomorrow. The scheme will run for 3 years, but critics warn a lack of public charging points still puts buyers off. The government's aiming for 300,000 chargers and a full petrol and diesel ban by 2030. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More news in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3393 and 1.1530 euros. The price of gold is £2,486.91 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 8,945 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Thank you, Tatiana. I'll just repeat today's huge breaking news a few moments ago, and it's this. The MasterChef presenter, John Turode, will not return to the BBC cooking show after producers Banijay UK confirmed his contract will not be renewed. The producers of the show, Banijay UK, say the BBC takes this upheld finding extremely seriously and will not tolerate racist language of any kind. Now, if you recall, this is into those allegations that Mr. Turode used racist language in a social situation a few years back. We don't know what that language was. It's an allegation he has consistently denied, repeating his claim that nobody even complained or was offended at the time. But in a blanket investigation into the behaviour of that man there, Greg Wallace, the spotlight turned onto John Turode and confirming that breaking news. John Turode sacked by the BBC. His contract will not be renewed. Is this the end of Mr. Turode? And more to the point, there's guaranteed now to be a huge political conversation about what this means for the BBC. Who better to ask about that than GB News' political editor, Chris Hope, who's fresh out of lobby. And Chris, I believe the conversation now is going to be heads will roll, or they should roll perhaps, at the BBC. Lisa Nandy, the Culture Secretary, has been calling for that, but potentially to stop with a certain Director General, Tim Davie. Who do you bump into a moment ago?
Well, Tim Davie, I saw having a coffee, and I'm sure it's him, coffee with Conservative MPs, it looked like, in Portcullis House. All eyes on him, all pressure on him. Now, his role as of yesterday from the government is the government has confidence in the chair of the BBC, who appointed the Director General. The government can't really have confidence in the Director General, but they can look after their confidence is in the board of the BBC. So that's where we stand. But clearly, there's a kind of a reckoning being felt here at MasterChef after John Turode has just left that programme, of course, Greg Wallace yesterday. So a BBC crisis at the moment.
And that crisis has been framed off by the scandal yesterday on Gaza, how to survive a war zone, the Greg Wallace situation, the John Turode situation, the Bob Villan, Glastonbury calamity, death to the IVF, going back to the Hugh Edwards scandal. There have been so many scandals. This seriously now surely has to get political.
Well, it might do. I will wait and see. I mean, we do know that the chairman of the BBC, as well as Tim Davie, the Director General, are giving evidence in September. That's a regular appearance in front of the Culture Committee, but it has an extra import now. There's at least 4 different scandals, I think you've mentioned there, which will come up, as the BBC often has to deal with crises every so often, and it's how they're being dealt with and whether there's a grip at the top, I think, which will define whether Tim Davie has confidence amongst MPs.
How much power does the government have when it comes to people like Tim Davie? We hear about the BBC Royal Charter being up for renewal. We constantly hear about should we be looking at a different type of funding model. How sharp are government's teeth actually?
Not that sharp. I mean, it's an extent that Lisa Nandy phoned Tim Davie while he was at Glastonbury when that Bob Villan language, deeply offensive to Jewish people, was broadcast on their iPlayer. So she can call him to account. But in terms of power over his role, his job, that is held by the board of the BBC, and the government has confidence in that board at the moment. But I mean, heads rolling is an issue, I think, being felt across government at the moment. This is the report, the Paul Rimmer report, into this data breach. Now, what I find surprising, I've just heard from the briefing with the PM spokesman, is they won't say whether anybody is being disciplined for this.
See, just so you're up to speed, viewers tuning in, this, of course, is the incredible story that broke earlier on today of the biggest data breach in the MOD's history. 24,000 Afghan soldiers and their families offered a secret asylum deal back into the UK. We were originally told it might be 7 billion quid. Then today I was like, oh, don't worry, it could only be £1 billion with an additional £1 billion of compensation. Afghans able to sue the British government, the British taxpayer, and it's an unholy mess. This is the report.
Here
Who
it
is going to be held responsible for this?
Well, they won't tell us. So one of the big questions we raised at this briefing with the Number 10 spokesman was who on earth will be held to account? The Number 10 spokesman said, we never comment on internal disciplinary issues. I did press several times on this because I think people would expect that cost you said there, was going to be much more. It might be upwards of £1 billion. This is caused by an individual forwarding information about people who supported the UK's efforts in Afghanistan, and it with this concern that they could be put at risk. And so there's been a review commissioned, all secret till today for the past 3 years, because a super injunction was ordered, not by the government, which injuncted any reporting of this when it first emerged 2 or 3 years ago, but by the courts themselves. But nothing. They won't get into disciplinary issues. And the PM himself, Sir Keir Starmer, was briefed shortly after he became Prime Minister. But John Healey, who's the Shadow Defence Secretary at the time, now the Defence Secretary, he was briefed 6 months before Sir Keir Starmer. So it looks to me like a failure of the state. We're waiting to hear from Ben Wallace, the Defence Secretary at the time. Grant Shapps helped set up some of the routes out of Afghan. There are people who have to be held to account for this, and there's a lot of money being spent, and it's falling on the taxpayer's dime.
Chris, a lot of people look at this, watching the show, and just think this is an unholy, tawdry dog's dinner of a situation. It would never apply in the private sector. If anybody watching this show messed up in this manner, they'd lose their job. They'd be named, they'd be shamed, they'd be kicked out. And yet the government slapped down a super injunction, the kind of gagging technique normally used by Premier League footballers if they're having an affair.
It wasn't the government who ordered the super injunction, it was the courts after the government applied for the injunction. That meant that we couldn't even report the legal dispute. It was simply sat there as being not talked about in the public sphere. That exact point about the private sector would demand heads to roll.
Same as the BBC. But the different standards seem to apply in public bodies. People watching this show will be headbutting their desks and thinking, it's one rule for us and it's one rule for them.
The government say, in terms, we never comment on internal disciplinary issues. We weren't even asking for names, simply, is someone being held to account? And there's also more news, Martin.
A third piece of paper you're brandishing.
What I have here, this is the act which will mean that we hand over the Diego Garcia military base and the British Indian Ocean Territory to Mauritius. Here's the act itself. Here's the explanatory notes. If you go to the back, it won't tell you here what it's costing. That, of course, has been set out already in previous announcements from the government. And also, they won't do an impact assessment either. But no public expenditure will be required as part of this bill, although there is a cost being paid as we pass over land that we control to Mauritius. There it is. That's the act. That is billed as... by critics, the critics call it a surrender act.
So just to hold that up, that is, it seems to be the final done deal. That is the Chagos Islands there, signed away by this government, and they won't even tell us how much. Sir Keir Starmer claimed it was £4 billion. He was even held to account by supporter journalists in that press conference. Could be 30 billion with inflation. It could even be as 54 billion. Who knows? But that seems to be official. Chagos Islands signed away to history.
Published today, July the 15th, 2025. The government tells us about this legislation. This bill is about keeping the Diego Garcia military base safe and central to our security, and it's welcomed by our key allies. I'm not surprised it's welcomed by key allies. They're not paying for it. We're paying for it.
And how long is that piece of string? Chris, please stick with us, because we've got another fantastic political story coming up for you now, because a new poll has predicted that Jeremy Corbyn's new party could tie with the Labour Party in terms of vote share, and that results in many big Labour beasts losing their seats. Well, here to tell us more is the CEO of the Electoral Calculus, Martin Baxter. Martin, you're the best in the business. It's a pleasure to have your company. Talk us through, it's only one poll, and it's a relatively small sample size before we get too encaptured by the fact this could be the real world, but still some eye-popping stats. If Jeremy Corbyn's party were to become real, it would spell fear for Keir. Talk us through the numbers.
Yes, good evening, Martin. As you say, it is just one poll, so we wait to see more polls come in, see if they support this, but it is eye-catching nonetheless. So it shows Reform on 34%, which is relatively consistent with where other pollsters have it at the moment, but it shows hypothetically if there were a Corbyn-led party to the left of Labour, it could get about as many votes as Labour, split the Labour vote. So we got so what Labour might have been on 30, that goes down to 15 each, putting Labour and the Jeremy Corbyn party in third equal place together. And that's, remember, a party doesn't even exist at the moment. So and we're not sure if it will exist, but if it does exist, and if it's anything like these figures, this would be incredibly bad news for Labour. This would be sort of a tempest tsunami of a tidal wave of destruction of both the traditional main parties, Conservative and Labour, would only be getting 1/3 of the votes on these figures. So,
and Martin, so when we look there about the parity between Jeremy Corbyn's party and the Labour Party, it would open the middle ground for Nigel Farage there on 34% to walk into Downing Street. Who would have thought? Jeremy Corbyn, almost the 12th man on the subs bench there, helping out Nigel Farage. Martin, what would it mean in terms of seats? You got a map for us?
Yes, I mean, just very roughly done a rough calculation, assuming that the Labour vote or the centre-left vote of 30% split evenly in every seat between Labour and Jeremy Corbyn. I think maybe these are slightly different figures. This is this must be another similar poll. It's not
That's fine, mate. But tell us your numbers, Mark.
Okay, our numbers are similar. 501 for Reform. The SNP second as the official opposition for the United Kingdom, Liberals third, Conservatives fourth on 28, and Labour would have 17 seats split between New Labour or the Keir Starmer Labour and Corbyn Labour. So essentially a wipeout for the Conservative and Labour parties if these figures were replicated at a general election. So it does show we live in very febrile times. Voters are completely sick of the established parties and established politicians and are looking for answers elsewhere. Whether they will get answers they like elsewhere remains to be seen. But at the moment, there is massive public dissatisfaction with the two big parties, and this poll is further evidence of that.
And Martin Baxter, we have some footage of the Labour cabinet on our screens there. I always like to ask you, if this poll were to be the real world, which of the Labour big beasts would lose their seats? Tell us more. It sounds like it could be a bloodbath.
Well, I'm afraid in the interest of time, it's easiest just to say that Ellie Reeves, the Minister without portfolio for the seat of Lewisham West, would keep her seat, and everybody else you see in those pictures would lose their seat. The entire Labour cabinet, apart from one, would go. Similarly, on the shadow cabinet, the entire cabinet, apart from three relatively junior Conservative MPs, would also lose their seats. I mean, if we may be slightly in the realms of political science fiction here, but it may not be quite as bad as these figures are suggesting, but it is pretty bad for the major parties at the moment. That Labour really have to get on and deliver and have a clear message and deliver on it. And they are failing at the moment both to convince the public that they have a clear message and that they are delivering.
Martin Baxter, CEO of Electoral Calculus, thank you very much. Superb as ever. Chris Hope, I'm going to come back to you now. It's just one poll. Of course, the Corbyn party doesn't exist yet. But even those from the Labour left, the current Labour left, have been saying this would be the help Nigel Farage get into number 10 Downing Street party. This data seems to say that.
It seems to. I just wonder, I was going to ask Martin if he was there, but does it justify the trying to talk to the Reform voter? That's certainly what is part of what the message is for number 10. That's what's under fire, I think, from the left, or many mainstream and left-wing Labour MPs.
Is Martin Baxter still with us? Martin is still with us. Chopper, fire away, ask him yourself.
Martin Baxter, it's great to see you again. I just was going to ask, if you can hear me now, Martin, do you think that this shows it's important to go after the votes to where Reform UK is? That's the big debate in the Parliamentary Party as we go into the summer recess with this party. Should they go after those Reform UK votes or go back into the kind of comfort blanket of where they've been before?
Hi, Chris. I'd say actually that there's very little movement between voters from the left side of politics to the right. There's only a few of those. So I think there's more potential for Keir Starmer Labour to try and unite the left. I'm expecting Labour to come out with electoral strategies such as, only Labour can stop Farage and try and unite the centre-left votes. If Keir Starmer can get the Jeremy Corbyn voters and the Greens and the Lib Dems to all vote for him, then he'll win with a massive landslide again. So I think he's perhaps got more potential there than he has of persuading Reform voters to come back to Labour. Obviously, I think there's caveats within that he should probably do something on the immigration issue just to kind of slow the hemorrhage of voters to Reform. But it's not actually that big a torrent anyway. So if you can stop a few on that side, but then work on uniting the centre-left, that would probably make the best electoral sense. I don't know what you think on that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think that's where there is ground to be made, I think, by Labour in the north, and that's where I think they're targeting their efforts. But that's under fire now from the party's mainstream Labour MPs.
OK, gentlemen, we have to leave it there. Martin Baxter, thank you for that little Brucey bonus there at the end, getting you back on. Always a pleasure. And Chris O, best in the business. 3 cracking bits of news there. Well done, mate. That's why you go into the lobby to bring home the fresh bacon for us every day. Thank you. The hardest working journalist on the channel. Now, still to come, I'll bring more reaction to the breaking news that MasterChef presenter John Turode has been dramatically sacked by the BBC, piling more pressure on under fire auntie. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Business News Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 5:28. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the newly elected Reform Party leader of Kent County Council has written to the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, demanding more immigration. Well, they say that about 20 to 25% of the county's social care workforce was from overseas and able to work via licensed sponsorships from employers. Well, let's now speak with the Reform Councillor for Kent, the leader, Lyndon Kemp-Carran. Lyndon, a pleasure to have your company. A lot of people were reading this story and saying, has a parallel universe been slipped through here? Reform asking for more immigration. Can it be true?
Now, come on, come, Martin. We've met before. You've heard me speak. In fact, anyone who's ever met me or heard me speak or even knows me vaguely knows that I would never, ever, ever call for more immigration. I think someone's been making mischief behind the scenes here, quite frankly, to try and twist the meaning of the letter that I wrote to not just the Home Secretary, but Stephen Kinnock as well. And I'll tell you why I wrote that letter. My cabinet member for adult social care came to me last week and said, we have got an absolute juggernaut of a problem heading down the tracks at us at 100 miles an hour because the Labour government has suddenly changed their mind and decided to turn off the tap for issuing social care visas from the 22nd of July this year. So the problem is, if you imagine a pipeline that we are relying on in Kent County Council to get the care workers to come and look after our most elderly and vulnerable residents in Kent, what the Labour government have done is pinch that pipeline really suddenly with no notice. They didn't tell us they were going to do it. They just put it on their website and we found out in a very roundabout way. So that is what drove me to write to the government to say, hang on a minute, you have now presented us with a massive problem because if we recruit months and months into the future to fill the vacancies in adult social care, which you must know, all your viewers will know, are very, very difficult to fill. We have relied very heavily in Kent on the foreign nationals who have these social care visas to come and do the jobs that nobody else wants to do. I'm absolutely in favour of getting British people to do these jobs, but it takes time. And what the government has done is suddenly cut the pipeline without any warning. They didn't even tell us, no notice period, nothing. So in Kent, we are suddenly facing a massive, massive problem that's not of our making.
Now, a lot of people would say, Lyndon, that this exposes the reality of being in opposition is easy, to call for less immigration, to clamp down, to train British workers. That costs more, it takes more time, and now you're in power, reality bites. And Kent County Council, ran by Reform, is still reliant on immigration for these jobs. I mean, the solutions that you want are going to take a long time to put in place.
And we thought we had that time, Martin. I must correct you yet again on the assumption that you think I somehow want foreign workers to keep coming over and doing these jobs. I absolutely do not. We thought we had a few years while the transition was managed by the Labour government to gradually turn off the tap, allowing us to recruit our own workers to do these jobs. The fact that they've picked an arbitrary date of the 22nd of July and suddenly imposed that upon us and not even given us notice or any warning, that is the point of my letter. I think people are deliberately trying to pick up some kind of schism in Reform and say, this person wants more immigration. Of course I don't. It is totally against party policy. That is why I stood on a Reform ticket for Kent County Council, because I fully believe we've become addicted to cheap foreign labour over the last 20 odd years. We need to wean ourselves off it. But like any addiction, you turn off the tap, you go cold turkey. That can often present more problems than it solves.
So, Lyndon, you haven't channeled then your inner Guy Verhofstadt. You haven't suddenly gone open borders on us.
I don't have it. Absolutely not. I think I'm slightly to the right of most people in Reform when it comes to immigration. I can tell you that for nothing.
OK, well, I'm glad we cleared that up and I'm happy to be put right. Thank you very much for joining us, Lyndon Kemp-Carran there, the leader of Reform County Council there down in Kent. Now, government spokesperson said they provided a funding boost of up to £3.7 billion to help support social care authorities in 2025 to 26. And Reform UK were also contacted for a comment, but we have had no reply. Well, we just had Lyndon Kemp-Carran on the show. Lots more still to come between now and 6 o'clock, including I'll be joined by the legendary Courtney, schoolgirl there, and her dad, Stuart. She was punished for wearing a Union Jack dress to her school's Culture Day and left heartbroken. Today, they're about to join me on the show. I cannot wait for the interview they all wanted. But first, here's your latest news headlines. It's Tatiana Sanchez.
Yes, thank you. The headlines at 5:30. John Turrow's contract on MasterChef will not be renewed. The BBC and production company Banijay UK have said it's after Turrow confirmed he's the subject of a racist language allegation upheld in a review into co-host Greg Wallace's behaviour. The data breach, which exposed details of Afghans, was a deeply regrettable incident that placed thousands of vulnerable people at risk and should never happen again, but no further regulatory actions required at this time, the Information Commissioner's office said. Defence Secretary John Healey spoke in the Commons this afternoon.
This was a serious departmental error. It was in clear breach of strict data protection protocols, and it was one of many data losses relating to the ARAP scheme during this period.
Figures from the Department for Work and Pensions reveal almost 1.3 million migrants are now claiming universal credit. That's a near 50% rise in claims since 2022, with EU nationals making up the majority. Daniel Graham and Adam Carruthers, who felled the tree at Sycamore Gap in Northumberland, have each been jailed for 4 years and 3 months at Newcastle Crown Court after they were convicted of 2 counts of criminal damage. And those are the latest headlines for now. More news at 6 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hi there. It's a very different day for many of us compared with a lot of the weather we've experienced through the summer so far. It's cool, cloudy, breezy, spells of rain and showers crossing the country, but all tending to ease later. We do have an area of low pressure moving through Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, and it's within this zone that there are some lively thunderstorms coming and going through the rest of the afternoon and into the evening. The spells of more persistent rain moving into the North Sea, the breeze easing, and showers, although they'll continue, will become fewer and further between over the night period, and by dawn, well, some clear spells out there and a fresh night to come, not too uncomfortable for sleeping. We do have some cloud and some outbreaks of rain returning to the southwest by the end of the night, and this is a slow-moving weather system, so mostly it will be confined to the southwest as we go through the day. Brighter skies are to be found further north and plenty of sunshine for parts of northern and northwest Scotland. I think some lingering cloud there for the east and south of Scotland. A few remaining showers, but not many. Northern Ireland, a beautiful start to the day following the thunderstorms of Tuesday. It's plenty of sunshine from the word go, but a lot of cloud across central and eastern parts of England, and like I say, a few showers. Now, the thickest cloud will be towards the southwest. This is going to be encroaching upon Somerset, Dorset, Devon through the day, into the south of Wales. A few spots of rain, but the most persistent weather likely for Cornwall and western parts of Devon. Elsewhere, bright enough, and actually feeling a little warmer with lighter winds compared to Tuesday, and temperatures reaching 27 or even 28 Celsius in places. Still scope for 1 or 2 showers for central and southern Scotland, northern England, but these will fade away later in the day, and then plenty of clear spells in the east as we begin Thursday, but this weather system will move into northwestern parts, bringing spells of rain, whilst it turns hot again in the southeast.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. It's 5:38. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. I've been looking forward to this story all day because a 12-year-old girl, Courtney, was punished by her teachers after wearing a Union Jack dress to her school's Culture Day. Astonishingly, Courtney's father claimed his daughter was told that Culture Day was not for her and was asked to collect her from school. I'm delighted to say that Courtney herself now joins me with her dad, Stuart Field. Welcome to you both. Could I just start off by saying we've had thousands and thousands of comments from our viewers here at GB News, all in complete and utter support of what has happened to you and what you've both been through. Let's start with that. Stuart, could I get you to explain for the benefit of the viewers who might not know the story, what happened to your beautiful daughter at school?
Sure, shoot. So Courtney went into school. She was taking part in a culture diversity day, which was held by the school. She got as far as the school gates, and I think the school stopped her and told her that she wasn't eligible to take part in the events that day. They took her to one side, put her more or less in isolation. They kept her in reception. She called me and I had to go and collect her from school.
And Courtney, if I could bring you in now, you've got that wonderful dress on there. What's not to like about that dress? It celebrates the flag, it celebrates being British. And Courtney, you had a beautiful speech written that you wanted to read out in your classroom, and I can't find a word wrong with it. You were celebrating Britain, but you're also celebrating the diversity of it. You never got a chance to read that. How has all this experience made you feel?
I'm really thankful for all the support that people have been giving me, and it's made me realise a lot that, or even more, that the school, what they did was wrong. Me not being allowed to read my speech, it's really upset me and it's embarrassed me as well, because I've prepared it and I really wanted to share it to my school.
You know, Courtney, I've got a girl myself who's 11 and she puts so much heart and soul into reading things out at school. It means everything to them. To be denied that, Stuart, is a cruel blow to any child. But could I ask you about the broader topic here? There's a feeling that it is now becoming commonplace in Britain, especially in schools, to be ashamed to be British.
Yeah, absolutely. I've received a lot of messages from people over the past 3 days sharing their experiences. There's been a significant number of people, you know, they've had a similar experience, whether it's taken a flag down, somebody giving them some kind of abuse for a national flag, and people having, as well with culture days at school, not being able to take part. You know, it's not for British kids. This seems to have sort of shook the hornet's nest, so to speak. People have messaged from all around the world. So I've had messages today from Japan, from Australia, Canada, America. We've had people in Italy, certain people offering gifts for Courtney, saying they want to reach out and treat her because even they don't think what's going on. So it goes to say a lot of people around the world and people in Europe and in all four corners of the world are looking at what's happening right now in the UK and can see that there's something definitely wrong with what's going on. You know, if children aren't allowed to celebrate, or if children aren't even encouraged to celebrate their heritage and their culture, and especially to fly their national flag and be proud of it, then there's something definitely wrong with the schooling system.
You know, one thing we like to do here on GB News is put things like this to power. Chris Hope, our political editor, went over to Downing Street and raised your story, Courtney, with the Prime Minister's office. And we got a statement out of them I'd like to read out. Number 10 says the school has now put out an apology, and it added, the Prime Minister believes that being British is something to be celebrated. We are a tolerant, diverse country. being British is something to be celebrated. Courtney, how does it feel to know that even the Prime Minister is taking notice of your story?
It definitely makes me feel very grateful, and it's crazy because I didn't think anyone would really hear it, and to see it go that far really made me happy.
And Courtney, it's always a huge focus on a young person. I mean, this has gone around the world, as Stuart just said, around the world and back, a huge outpouring of sympathy towards you. Courtney, has this made you even more proud to be British?
Definitely, especially knowing that all these British people and even people from around the world are celebrating and are saying that British culture is important.
And Stuart, may I ask you what your take there on the fact the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, believes that being British is something to be celebrated? Do you believe that?
I'm not the biggest Starmer fan, I'm going to say that out there right now, but you know, words are words. The fact that there's the head teacher and we've had governors, you know, backtracking and saying in public apologies, saying that they weren't aware, you have to wonder what's actually being taught in the schools and where this has come from. You know, why teachers have these sort of agendas that they're throwing at children. It's not at one school, it's lots of schools. You know, people have reached out to me from all four corners of the UK, and it's happening all over. So where's this coming from? Where's it manifesting? You know, what are teachers doing? What's the purpose? Why are they doing this to children? You know, these, as far as I can see, this is the future of our country, and if we're denying them, you know, the right to be proud and to celebrate their own culture and history, where does that leave us in 20, 30 years' time?
And Stuart, Phil, can you give us a flavour of the kinds of messages, the kinds of things that people have been saying to you from around the UK? Have they told stories about their children being brainwashed in classrooms?
I've had stories of various. Most of them, I mean, a lot of them is down to this, the Union Jack. People just don't seem to like it. Where did we come from? From, you know, say 1946. You know, after the Second World War, there was bunting everywhere. People were celebrating. You couldn't go to someone's house without seeing a teapot on the side with the King or the Queen and a Union Jack on there, or a tablecloth. It was celebrated, and for some reason now it's looked down upon. You know, it's vilified. People don't want to see the Union Jack. And if that's being taught in schools to British children, and British children aren't being included in, you know, in being able to share their culture. I mean, this is a 12-year-old's interpretation of what British culture means to her. Mine is completely different, and I'm sure if I went and asked a 90-year-old gentleman somewhere, his idea of what British culture looks like or is would be completely different. But this is what, you know, British culture looks like to a 12-year-old girl in Coventry in England, and so it should be respected and it should be promoted. It should be encouraged, people to express what their country means to them. And if this is what's happening in schools, then something needs to happen. You know, people, school teachers and governors, education authorities need to actually start looking into, you know, what's going on in schools and making sure that this is promoted. You know, children should be proud of their country, their culture and their heritage.
Courtney, I've had so many messages today from GB News viewers, and they all just want to pass on their support to you. They want to tell you how proud they are of you for having the guts to take a stand. And I'd like to add my personal message. I think you're an absolute superhero. I genuinely do. Not all heroes wear capes. You're not wearing a cape, but if you do wear a cape, can you please make it a Union flag coloured cape? Courtney, I just want to send a huge amount of love to you from our viewers, and your story has really touched the hearts and the souls of many, many people all around the world. It started as a bad experience for you, Courtney, but I think it's ending very, very well. How does that make you feel? Justifiably proud, no doubt.
I'm shocked, and I just thank you so much, I guess.
Humble till the end. Courtney, thank you so much. Stuart, Thank you so much. Keep going. I don't think you quite understand how much this has touched people and how much they believe that you're fighting a fight that the entire nation need to have. I'm getting a bit tearful myself watching this. I've got a daughter just your age. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you both very much for joining us today on GB News. Please keep going. Now, a spokesman for Stowe Valley Trust said this: "We are committed to fostering an environment where every pupil feels respected, valued and included. And we have since spoken directly with the pupil and her family to listen to their concerns and reflect on how this could have been handled better. We are committed to learning from this experience and ensuring that every student feels recognised and supported when expressing pride in their heritage." Now, coming up, a story that touches my heart because patients are raising a glass to a GP who's urging Brits to ditch antidepressant pills, instead head to the boozer. The doctor joins me next. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Sally first. How can this be good?
I'm not sure if it's good, but I wouldn't say it's bad. I would defend everyone's choice to, if they can afford it, send their child to whatever care facility that they choose. And I think when you're talking about very young preschool children, there's an awful lot of life ahead of them where, you know, they can learn that life isn't always going to shower you with rose petals and tasting menus. If it suits the parents, if it suits the child, why not? And we are talking about a very small sector of society who can afford this sort of option with your preschool childcare, and it's for a very short time. So there's obviously a market for it. They've come all the way over from Singapore to set this up. It's their first outpost in the UK. So yeah, good luck. If there's a gap in the market, fill it.
I know I'm a mother of 4 and I've got my own business, and even when we sit down for tea at night, I'm still on my phone, I'm still emailing. So for me, it's kind of like, I'm wondering if these parents are working 24/7 and they're trying to offset the guilt because they're really time poor with the kids. I mean, I've got 4 boys and I do think I naturally pamper them, because I don't know about you, Stephen, but when I was growing up, I was constantly told I didn't even know I was born, whatever that means. And so it's like, I think each generation we pamper our kids even more, you know?
But Davinia, when you're sitting down with your kids having dinner, are you giving them a crisp golden Spanaca pita with refreshing tzatziki, followed by smoky jambalaya studded with free-range chicken and prawns? Or are they getting beans on toast?
Funnily enough, Stephen, that's a no.
GB News, the People's Channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Welcome back. What a beautiful story. Normally, when you're feeling unwell, you might go to the doctor for medicine. But have we found a new cure? Well, this doctor says depressed Brits should just go to the boozer. Let's speak with him. Where have you been all my life? The GP, Sir Sam Everington. Sam, what wonderful news. Tell us more.
Well, we know that people have become disconnected socially. And the pub is a fantastic place to connect with people. I think actually very much for men. We know men are far less likely to offload than women actually about any mental health issues, depression, anxiety. They will over a pint. That tends to loosen you up a little bit. You're much more likely to talk about your problems. But most importantly, you're connecting to your family, friends, and your community. And we know that is good medicine, and certainly much better than an antidepressant. Very little evidence that in mild to moderate depression, that antidepressants work. 1 in 5 adults in England are on antidepressants. No evidence that it reduces the suicide rate at all. So this is modern medicine, as far as I'm concerned, and much more effective than most of what we prescribe as doctors.
And Sir Sam Everington, I'm saying that's doctor's orders. Go to the pub.
Yes.
No, I mean, tell us more. You're absolutely right, particularly a support network, particularly for men. I think it's magnificent. It's helping pubs at the same time.
Yeah, it's good all round for the whole of the community. And as I say, you'll meet all sorts of different people in the pub. Look, whenever I go into a pub, and even if it's not very full, the people behind the bar always chat to you, start a conversation. Well, that's fantastic. One of the big epidemics we suffer from in our society is just simply loneliness. And we're over-medicalising, we're over-prescribing. It's not solving people's problems. We have 2.8 million people on sickness benefits, more than you would expect in a European country. This is really damaging for them. What happens when you're in a situation like that? You're more likely to spend time at home looking at 4 walls. If I said to you, I'll give you a sick note for a week, and all you need to do is go home.
So Sam Everington, we have to leave it there. I'm about to take up your doctor's orders. That's all from me for tonight. But up next, someone I'll always raise the glass to, Tubes & Co.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there. It's a very different day for many of us compared with a lot of the weather we've experienced through the summer so far. It's cool, cloudy, breezy, spells of rain and showers crossing the country, but all tending to ease later. We do have an area of low pressure moving through Northern Ireland, southern Scotland. It's within this zone that there are some lively thunderstorms coming and going through the rest of the afternoon and into the evening. The spells of more persistent rain moving into the North Sea, the breeze easing, and showers, although they'll continue, will become fewer and further between over the night period, and by dawn, well, some clear spells out there and a fresh night to come, not too uncomfortable for sleeping. We do have some cloud and some outbreaks of rain returning to the southwest by the end of the night, and this is a slow-moving weather system, so mostly it will be confined to the southwest as we go through the day. Brighter skies are to be found further north, and plenty of sunshine for parts of northern and northwest Scotland. I think some lingering cloud there for the east and south of Scotland. A few remaining showers, but not many. Northern Ireland, a beautiful start to the day following the thunderstorms of Tuesday. It's plenty of sunshine from the word go, but a lot of cloud across central and eastern parts of England, and, like I say, a few showers. Now, the thickest cloud will be towards the southwest. This is going to be encroaching upon Somerset, Dorset, Devon through the day, into the south of Wales. A few spots of rain, but the most persistent weather likely for Cornwall and western parts of Devon. Elsewhere, bright enough, and actually feeling a little warmer with lighter winds compared to Tuesday, and temperatures reaching 27 or even 28 Celsius in places. Still scope for 1 or 2 showers for central and southern Scotland and northern England, but these will fade away later in the day. And then plenty of clear spells in the east as we begin Thursday, but this weather system will move into northwestern parts, bringing spells of rain, whilst it turns hot again in the southeast.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The M8 junction 19 eastbound on slip is closed due to flooding, so drivers should consider alternative routes and allow extra time. At junction 40 tieback on the M4 eastbound, roadworks have closed both slips. In West Berkshire, a vehicle fire has shut all lanes on the M4 westbound between junctions 12 and 13. On the A34 southbound between junctions with the A272 and the M3, A collision has caused 10-minute delays. And on the trains, Hull trains and Northern services face major disruptions between Hull and Selby and Hull and Goole. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.